Hey guys, tonight we are traveling back to the 19th century. Not to fight in a war or to attend a royal ball, but to do something a little more peculiar. Tonight, we're going to step into the mind and the dusty workshop of a Victorian inventor with a brilliant and brilliantly useless idea. It's a world of steam, strict rules, and so much coal minus laced smog you'd probably think the sky was permanently gray. Honestly, between the questionable sanitation and the rigid social codes, you might not last the first day. But don't worry, I'll be your guide. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop me a comment below and let me know what city you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see where these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The year is 1888. You're in London, and your arm aches. It's not the ache of hard labor in a factory or from hauling goods down at the docks. It's a very specific, very modern, and very civilized ache. It's the ache of relentless politeness. You're walking down the Strand, a river of humanity flowing in both directions. The air is thick with the scent of roasted chestnuts, damp wool, horse manure, and the faint, metallic tang of progress. The noise is a symphony of chaos, the clatter of horseshoes on cobblestone, the rumble of omnibus wheels, the cries of newsboys hawking the evening paper, the distant toot of a steam whistle from the Thames. And with every few steps, you have to do it. A gentleman of a higher social standing approaches. Your hand instinctively rises, grips the brim of your stiff bowler hat, lifts it a precise 2 inches from your head with a slight forward nod, and then returns it. The moment later, a lady accompanied by her chaperone sweeps past, her eyes fixed forward. Again, the hand goes up. The hat is lifted this time a little higher, a more deferential gesture, and then settled back onto your head. An old business acquaintance from across the street catches your eye and gives a curt nod. You reciprocate with a quick, almost reflexive tip of the brim. Up, down, up, down. It's a constant, low-minus level muscular and mental effort. Forgetting to do it could be seen as a grave insult. Doing it incorrectly a sloppy tip for a superior. An overly familiar lift for a stranger could mark you as a country bumpkin, a social climber who doesn't know the rules. The whole city seems to be a complex dance of hats, a silent, ceaseless ballet of felt and silk. This is the tyranny of a hat, and you are tired of it. As you pass a hatter's shop, you glance at the rows of top hats, bowlers, and timbre guests in the window. You think about the men who made them. It's a strange and sometimes dangerous trade. You've heard the stories of the hatters, especially those working with felt, who were slowly poisoned by the mercury used in the manufacturing process. It affected their nervous systems, made them tremble and seem perpetually confused. It's where that odd phrase comes from, mad as a hatter. It's a sobering thought that a symbol of rigid social conformity was often crafted by men driven to madness by the very materials of their trade. Your arm gives another tired throb as you tip your hat to the vicar, and that's when you see it, across the street, through the grimy window of a small industrial workshop. You see a machine. It's a small steam-minus powered piston, rhythmically pushing a lever back and forth. Polished steel, hissing steam, a perfect, repeatable motion. Push, retract, push, retract. It's hypnotic. It's designed for some mundane task, maybe stamping small metal parts or powering a pump. But you don't see a pump. You see an arm. You see a hand. You see a hat. The world around you seems to fade away. The clatter of the street, the chatter of the crowds, it all becomes a dull hum. In your mind's eye, you see that piston, miniaturized. You see a series of delicate gears, tiny levers, and carefully calibrated springs. You see a device, a beautiful brass and steel contraption, strapped discreetly to a gentleman's head, hidden beneath the hat itself, and you see it performing that single, Perfect, elegant motion, a slight pressure change, a subtle trigger, and click -4. The hat lifts itself, gracefully, perfectly, every single time. A machine for manners, a device for decorum, an automaton for etiquette. A thrill, sharp and electric, runs through you. This is it. This is the idea that will solve the quiet suffering of thousands of gentlemen. It will save them from the ache in their arms, from the anxiety of social missteps. It's not about laziness, you tell yourself. It's about efficiency. It's about applying the glorious, rational principles of the industrial age to the messy, irrational world of human interaction. Historians are still debating whether the explosion of these kinds of gadgets in the late Victorian era was driven by a genuine belief in progress and the perfect turbidity of life, or if it was a form of unconscious social commentary, a subtle satire on the very rules they claim to uphold. But you're not thinking about that. You are not a historian or a sociologist. You are an inventor. You turn away from the workshop window, a frantic energy now coursing through your veins. The ache in your arm is forgotten, replaced by the itch in your mind. You quicken your pace, dodging through the crowd, your head not filled with social obligations, but with blueprints. You can already see at the springs, the cogs, the elegant curve of the lifting arm. You have to get back to your small flat, to your drafting table. You have to get this down on paper before the glorious, absurd vision fades. The automatic cat minus stipper, the solution to a problem nobody knew they had, until now. You've made it back to your small, rented room in Bloomsbury. The frantic energy that seized you on the Strand is still fizzing in your blood. The gas lamp on your wall hisses softly, casting a warm, yellow minus green light over your cramped quarters. It's a typical bachelor's room, a narrow bed, a washed sand with a pitcher and bowl, a single armchair with worn minus without upholstery, and your most prized possession, a sturdy drafting table littered with schematics for other, less minus inspired inventions, a self minus stoking fireplace grate, a fountain pen that supposedly never leaks. It does. But this new idea, this is different. This feels important. It feels like a key earning in a lock you didn't even know was there. You shrug off your coat and place your bowler hat on its designated stand by the door. You look at the hat. This simple objective felted rabbit fur and shellac. It sits there, inert, unassuming, yet, out on the street, it becomes an instrument of immense social power and complexity. It's not just a hat. It's a burden, a constant, silent demand. You begin to pace the small patch of threadbare carpet, the floorboards groaning a familiar rhythm under your feet, to justify the beautiful madness of the machine taking shape in your head. You have to fully articulate the problem. You have to catalog the sheer absurdity of what you endure every single day. It's a grammar of gestures, and everyone is expected to be fluent. Let's start with the basics. You pass a lady on the street. You must lift the hat clear off your head, not just a tip, a full lift, and as you do, you execute a slight bow, your eyes lowered for a respectable moment before meeting hers. If she is with a male companion, your gesture must acknowledge him as well, usually with a secondary nod after the primary lift for the lady. Did the order wrong, and you look like a ruffian. Then there are the men. If the man is of a higher social station, your employer, a local magistrate, a member of the aristocracy, God forbid, it's a deep, deliberate tip of the brim, holding it for a second longer than you would for an equal, ensuring he sees and acknowledges the gesture of deference. For an equal, a friend, or a colleague, a quick, casual flick of the fingers to the brim is sufficient. It's a gesture that says, I see you, I respect you, we are of the same tribe. But even that has its subtleties. Too quickened, it's dismissive. Too slowened, it's weirdly intense. And that's just for greetings. The rules multiply from there. You pass a church during a service. You tip your hat. A funeral procession goes by. The hat comes off completely and is held against your chest until it passes. The national anthem plays, Head off. You enter a private home? Head off. Immediately. You enter your private club? Head off. A restaurant? Head off. A theater? Head off. But what about a shop? Oh, here lies the gray area, the swamp of social anxiety. A high-minded tobacconist or a tailor? Head off. It's a sign of respect for the establishment. A common grocer or a bustling department store? You can, generally, keep it on, but make the wrong choice, and you feel the burn of silent judgment from the other patrons. It's exhausting. You pause your pacing and run a hand through your hair. You think about your other hat, the formal one, the top hat. It's not just felt. It's silk plush stretched over a delicate frame. It's incredibly expensive and notoriously fragile. One etiquette guide you read warned that a gentleman's character could be judged by the state of his silk top hat. A single unexpected downpour could ruin its delicate sheen, turning a symbol of status into a soggy emblem of misfortune. This adds a financial terror to the social one. Every tip of that hat in damp weather is a tiny gamble. It makes you wonder where this all came from. Historians and antiquarians are still arguing about the origins of this gesture. One popular theory, the one you rather like, is that it's a relic of medieval chivalry. Knights would lift the visors of their helmets to identify themselves and show they came in peace, exposing their faces as a sign of trust. The modern hat tip, this theory goes, is a symbolic echo of that, a gesture of vulnerability. Others, however, dismiss this as overly romantic. They argue it's a much more recent development, a civilian bastardization of a military salute, with no deep historical roots at all. The fact that no one can definitively agree on why you have to do it makes the rigid enforcement of how you do it feel all the more ludicrous. And it's not just you. You've seen the toll it takes. The older gentleman with a touch of arthritis, his hand trembling as he raises it to his hat for the 10th time in a single blow. The flustered young clerk, new to the city, his face a mask of panic as he tries to remember the correct gesture for the right person. You even saw a man's hat get knocked into a puddle by a clumsy passerby, and the look on his face was anger. It was pure, unadulterated shame, as if he himself had committed a terrible faux pas. This isn't civilization. You think. It's a low-minus grade, perpetual performance. It's a system of control disguised as politeness. The fizzing in your blood has now settled into a calm, determined hum. The why is clear. The problem is real. It's a tyranny, and you will be its liberator. You walk to your drafting table, push aside the plans for the leaky pen, and pull out a fresh sheet of heavy paper. You dip your technical pen in ink, and, with a steady hand, you draw a circle, the circumference of a head. Inside it, you begin to sketch. A small, coiled spring here, a hinged lever there, a delicate, clockwork, minus-like escapement mechanism to regulate the motion. The first crude blueprint of the automatic hat, minus dipper, begins to emerge from the ink, a tiny mechanical revolution taking its first breath in the quiet of your gas-lit room. The next few weeks blur into a effigy of obsession. Your small Bloomsbury room is no longer just a place to sleep. It has transformed into a miniature factory, a laboratory of brass and steel. The air, already thick with the scent of gaslight and old paper, now carries the sharp, metallic smell of cutting oil and hot solder. Your drafting table is buried under an slide of sketches, each one a slight variation on the last different gear ratios, new spring configurations, increasingly elaborate trigger mechanisms. This is where the dream collides with the stubborn, unforgiving reality of physics. You need power, but not too much. You need it to be small, but strong. You begin with the most obvious power source of your Aristine. Your first concept is a marvel of miniaturization, a tiny boiler, no bigger than a teacup, that would generate a puff of steam to drive a piston. You spend a week trying to build it, using a jeweler's torch and tweezers. The result is a device that does, technically, work. It also has a tendency to hiss alarming jets of scalding water at random intervals and would require the wearer to carry a small pouch of coolant match. You imagine a gentleman trying to make a good impression while a tiny, leaky steam engine huffs away on his head. You scrap the idea. It's not just impractical, it's a fire hazard. So you move on to the next great power source of the age clockwork. Springs, the coiled energy of tightly wound metal. This is far more promising. It's silent, self-contained, and clean. You spend your meager savings at a watchmaker's supply shop in Clerkenwell, a district famous for its clock and watch artisans. The shop is a wonderland, a quiet, dusty place where time itself seems to be dissected and sold by the part. You buy gears no bigger than a pinhead, hair springs as fine as spider silk, and tiny, polished screws that you have to handle with tweezers. Back in your workshop room, you begin the assembly. This is painstaking work. Your world shrinks to the few inches of space under your magnifying glass. You hold the gear with your tweezers, your other hand steadying a miniature screwdriver. You have to hold your breath to place a spring without it pinging off into a dusty corner of your room, lost forever. Your fingers become stained with grease and pricked by sharp edges. You learn the unique character of different metals, the soft give of brass, the unyielding strength of steel, the finicky nature of copper. Your landlord, a stern woman named Mrs. Higgins, complains about the strange clicking and whirring sounds coming from your room at all hours. You assure her it's just a new type of cluck. You're not entirely lying. The mechanism, your building shares a common ancestry, with the timepieces ticking away in every gentleman's waistcoat. You scavenge for parts everywhere. You buy a broken music box from a street peddler and carefully extract its spring and governor, the little fan that regulates its speed. This gives you an idea for controlling the tip. You don't want the hat to just fly off the head. It needs to be a smooth, elegant motion. The governor fan, by creating air resistance, can slow the release of the spring's energy, making the lift graceful. One of the oddest, and surprisingly useful, things you acquire is a collection of old dental tools from a retiring dentist. These long, slender picks and prods are perfect for manipulating the tiny components deep within your contraption's chassis. It's a strange thought tools designed to navigate the crevices of human teeth are now building a machine to navigate the crevices of social etiquette. Historians often marvel at the ingenuity of Victorian inventors, but they rarely talk about the sheer resourcefulness required, the ability to see a dental probe and imagine it as the perfect tool for setting a clockwork gear. The biggest challenge is the trigger. How does the device know when to tip the hat? Your first idea is a small, discreet button connected by a wire down your sleeve to a ring on your finger. A subtle press of the thumb would activate the mechanism. It's clever, but it still requires a conscious action. It doesn't quite fulfill your dream of true automation. Your grander, more ambitious idea is a pneumatic trigger. A small, sensitive ear bladder, or bellows, positioned at the front of the device. The theory is that when you perform a bow or a nod, the change in air pressure and momentum would be enough to compress the bladder and trigger the lift. This would make the hat tip a natural extension of your body's own polite gesture. It's a beautiful, elegant theory. In practice, it's a nightmare to calibrate. You spend days blowing on the tiny bellows, trying to get it to react to a gentle nod, but not, say, a sudden gust of wind or the jolt of stepping off a curb. The room is now a testament to your struggle. The floor is littered with bits of rejected brass, tangled wires, and springs that have sprung their last. A small pile of failed prototypes sits in one corner, a graveyard of bad ideas. You've barely slept. You've been surviving on tea, stale bread, and the ferocious energy of your vision. You are a classic Victorian inventor, part genius, part obsessive, part madman, fueled by a conviction that the world can be perfected, one tiny, unnecessary gear at a time. The actual historical record is full of patents for devices just as specific and seemingly bizarre as yours. From self-minus tipping teapots to elaborate page-minus turning machines for avid readers. Your quest, in this context, isn't that strange at all. You're part of a great, optimistic, and slightly unhinged tradition. Finally, after what feels like an eternity of trial and error, you have something. A working prototype. It's a skeleton of brass and steel, a delicate but functional heart. It's not pretty. The solder joints are a bit messy, and a few of the levers are slightly bent. But when you wind the mainspring with a small key and gently press the pneumatic trigger, it happens. The small, hinged arm, to which you've attached a thimble for now, rises in a smooth, elegant arc, holds for a second, and then gracefully returns to its resting position. Click. Click. The sound is sublime. It's the sound of progress. It's the sound of a problem being solved. You hold it in your hand. This strange, mechanical creature. It's heavy. It's ungainly. And it's probably not safe. But it works. Now, you just need to build a proper housing for it and attach it to an actual hat. The first field test is imminent. The moment of truth has arrived. It's a grey, overcast Tuesday. The kind of day London produces with depressing regularity. You've decided this is perfect for the maiden voyage of the automatic hat-minus-tipper. Prototype 1. Less direct sunlight means fewer prying eyes to witness a potential public humiliation. Prototype 1 is a monster. It's a far cry from the sleek, discreet device you dreamed of. Your hand-minus-tilt creation, with its brass housing and exposed gears, is about the size of a large apple and weighs nearly as much as a brick. Attaching it to a hat was the first major challenge. You cowed and bring yourself to desecrate your good silk top hat, so you've sacrificed your older, sturdier boy. The device is crudely strapped to the inside with leather thongs that you've punched through the felt. The whole assembly is alarmingly top-minus heavy. When you place it on your head, you have to actively tense your neck muscles to keep it from slumping to one side. It's less like wearing a hat and more like balancing a piece of industrial equipment. The lifting mechanism is a hinged metal plate that is supposed to gently push the hat upwards and forwards. You've attached this to the hat itself, while the main clockwork body is strapped to a leather harness that fits snugly over your head. It's complicated and comfortable, and you can feel a gear pressing into your scalp, but it's ready. You take a deep breath, give the mainspring a final wind with its little key, and step out of your building onto the street. The simple act of walking is a new and perilous adventure. With each step, the weight on your head shifts precariously. You feel a profound, absurd sense of vulnerability. You're less of a suave gentleman of the future and more of a man trying to walk a straight line with a stack of books on his head. Your plan is simple. You'll walk one block, find a suitable target and approaching gentleman who warrants a polite nod and engage the pneumatic trigger. You've set the sensitivity to what you believe is the nod setting. A quick, decisive dip of the head should do it. You spot your test subject. A portly man with impressive chopped sideburns is walking towards you, reading a newspaper. HES the perfect, non-threatening choice. HES not even looking at you. As he draws near, you prepare yourself. You fix your eyes on him, summon your courage, and execute what you hope is a natural, gentlemanly nod. Nothing happens. The man glances up from his paper, gives you a strange look probably, because you've just nodded at him for no reason and continues on his way. You stand frozen for a moment, a hot flush of embarrassment crawling up your neck. The trigger is too stiff. You need a more forceful nod. A few moments later, a young couple approaches. This is a more complex social situation, but you're committed now. As they get closer, you take a steadying breath and try again. This time, you put your back into it. You perform a nod so deep and vigorous, it's closer to a head-bang. The result is instantaneous and spectacular. The pneumatic trigger, stimulated by the violent motion, engages with far more force than you anticipated. The mainspring releases its full, governed power in a single, Explosive burst. There's a loud desproing -CRACK sound that makes the young woman jump. The lifting plate, instead of gently tipping the hat, launches it like a catapult. Your bowler hat flies straight up, cartwheels twice in the air, and sails over your head. It lands with a hollow thump in the middle of the street, directly in the path of an oncoming horse-drawn delivery cart. The horse, startled by the flying object, rears up with a frightened whinny. The cart driver shouts something colorful that you can't quite make out. You are left standing on the pavement, the ridiculous leather and brass harness exposed on your head, looking like some kind of medical patient who has escaped from an asylum. The young couple is staring at you, their mouths agape, a perfect mixture of shock and morbid amusement on their faces. You can feel every eye on the street turning to you, the man whose head just violently ejected its own hat. Your first instinct is to flee, to run back to your room and melt the prototype down into a single, anonymous lump of brass. But then there's your hat, lying for laundry in the street. You dash out, snatch it from under the horse's hooves, and retreat to the relative safety of the pavement, your face burning with the heat of 1,000 suns. The hat has a new, rather unflattering dent in the crown. This is the harsh reality of invention. It's not a clean, linear path of progress. It's a series of small, public disasters. This is a detail often lost in the grand narratives of famous inventors. They don't just have a eureka moment and then produce a perfect product. They have moments like this, moments of profound, comical failure. One little known fact is that some early inventors of the bicycle created velocipedes that were so difficult to ride and prone to accidents that they were nicknamed bone shakers. Right now, your hat -stipper feels less like a convenience and more like a head shaker. You quickly walk back towards your building, not daring to make eye contact with anyone. You can hear a few snickers from the onlookers. You've not only failed to solve the problem of social anxiety, you've amplified it by a factor of 10. Back in the safety of your room, you unstrap the contraption from your head. Your scalp is sore where the gear was pressing into it. You look at the device, then at your dented hat. It's a complete failure. A dangerous, embarrassing, unworkable mess. But as you stare at it, the shame begins to recede, replaced by a familiar, stubborn glint of determination. You know what went wrong. The spring is too strong. The governor fan you scavenged from the music box is too small to regulate the release. The trigger needs to be less sensitive to motion and more to deliberate control. The problem isn't the idea. The problem is the execution. Historians often debate the line between a visionary and a crackpot. Is it persistence in the face of failure, or is it the inability to recognize a bad idea? At this moment, you firmly believe you are the former. You are not defeated. You are merely collecting data. You place prototype 1 on the workbench. It's not a failure. It's a lesson. You pick up a fresh sheet of paper and begin to sketch. Prototype 2 will be better. It will be lighter. It will be smoother. And most importantly, it will not turn your hat into a projectile. The journey is far from over. The dented bowler hats, it's on your table like a silent accusation. Prototype 1 lies in pieces, its parts cannibalized for the next generation. Your public humiliation on the street, while painful, was also instructive. You've learned that raw power is nothing without control. You've also learned that if you're going to invent something, you need to give it a name that inspires confidence, not mockery. The automatic hat -stipper is too plain, too functional. It describes what it does, but not what it means. This is a quintessential Victorian impulse, the era huddle of a fair with elaborate, polysyllabic, and often dramatic names for everything from medicines to machinery. This wasn't just marketing. It was a reflection of the age's self-perception. It was a time of grand ambitions, of empire and industry, and a simple name just wouldn't do. The world wasn't just being changed. It was being improved, perfected, and elevated. The language had to match. So you put aside your engineering brain for a moment and become a poet, the wordsmith of commerce. You sit in your armchair, a cup of lukewarm tea in hand, and stare at the ceiling, letting words and phrases bubble up. You need something that sounds scientific, elegant, and revolutionary all at once. You start by brainstorming concepts. What is the device? It's a social facilitator, an aid to etiquette, a mechanism for gentlemen. You jot down keywords: gentlemen, etiquette, social, automatic, mechanical, superior, assistant, decorum, poise. You try combining them. The gentleman's mechanical social assistant. It's a bit of a mouthful. It sounds like a job title for a very boring robot. No, that's not it. It lacks flair. You need to tap into the era's obsession with Latin and Greek roots. Using classical language gave an invention an instant veneer of intellectual seriousness and historical weight, even if the invention itself was fundamentally silly. You pull out a dusty dictionary and start looking for inspiration. Automaton, Kainz's movement, presto quickly, and Rossmann, the kind to minus, and Ross automaton. It sounds like a monster from a Greek myth, a bit intimidating. You imagine the marketing slogan the kind to minus and Ross automaton tame your social obligations. Maybe not. How about something that emphasizes the elegance of the motion? The gentleman's poise minus engine. That has a nice ring to it. An engine of poise. It captures the industrial spirit while promising a social benefit. It's a strong contender. You remember reading about a popular cure minus all tonic called Dr. Kilmares Swamproot. The name was evocative, mysterious, and vaguely medicinal. It promised a natural, earthy solution to whatever ailed you. Maybe you need something more organic minus sounding. The salutation spring? Too simple. The decorum device? Getting warmer, but still a bit bland. You think about the competition, even the imagined competition. If someone else were to invent this, what would they call it? Probably something dramatic, like the Imperial Salutation Machine or the Sovereign Hat minus Stilter. The word imperial was a powerful brand in 19th century Britain. Slapping it on a product immediately associated it with the power, prestige, and reach of the British Empire. It's a tempting route. The imperial courtesy minus mechanism. It's strong, but maybe a little pompous for a device whose primary function is to avoid a slight strain on the arm. This naming ritual wasn't just for commercial products. Historians point out that even scientific discoveries and theories were often given grand, impressive names, framing them as monumental breakthroughs in human understanding. It was an age of supreme confidence. The very act of naming something was an act of claiming mastery over it. You look at your sketches for Prototype 2. It's more refined. You're incorporating a clockwork escapement like the mechanism that controls the swing of a pendulum to ensure a smooth, measured lift and descent. It's all about controlled release. Hey, governor. That's the key. And then it hits you. A name that combines the technical, the social, and the aspirational. A name that is both descriptive and sophisticated. The patent tether minus spring salute, or IUM. Let's break it down. Patent. This is crucial. It suggests it's official, protected, a genuine innovation. Even if you don't have the patent yet, it's a statement of intent. Ether minus spring. This is your masterstroke. Ether was a hot topic in Victorian science. It was the hypothetical, invisible substance that was believed to fill all of space and allow light to travel. While scientists were beginning to question its existence, the word still carried a powerful aura of cutting minus edge, almost magical science. It sounds light, ethereal, effortless. It elevates your simple clockwork spring into something far more mysterious and advanced. Salute, or IUM, the dignified, Latin minus-esque flourish. It's not just a tipper or a lifter. It's a complete system for saluting. A place, a tool, a philosophy, all in one word. The patent tether minus spring salute, or IUM. It's perfect. It's so perfect. It almost makes the device itself seem more plausible. It's a name you could print an elegant script on a beautiful trade card. It's a name a salesman could say with a straight face and with a touch of pride. You say it aloud a few times. I am the inventor of the patent ether minus spring salute or IUM. Yes, that feels right. It transforms you from a crackpot in a bedsit who almost got his hat run over by a cart into a visionary engineer on the cusp of a social revolution. The question of whether the Victorians were master marketers or just genuinely in love with the sound of their own elaborate words is something academics still chew on. Were they trying to fool the public, or did they sincerely believe that a grand name could elevate a humble object? For you, in this moment, it's not a debate. The name is a blueprint for the feeling you want to sell. With the name settled, you feel a renewed sense of purpose. You're not just building a gadget anymore. You are crafting the physical manifestation of a brilliant idea. An idea with a name to match its ambition. You turn back to your workbench, picking up a tiny gear with your tweezers. The salute or IUM will not be a projectile minus launching monstrosity. It will be worthy of its name, elegant, ethereal, and perfectly controlled. The ghost of your public failure has been exorcised by the power of a good, solid, fantastically over minus the minus stop name. The name the patent ether minus spring salute or IUM echoes in your mind, a constant source of motivation. But the first word of that glorious title patent is a hurdle you have yet to clear. An idea, no matter how brilliant, is worthless if it isn't protected. In the fiercely competitive industrial landscape of London, an unprotected invention would be stolen and copied before your first prototype cooled on the workbench. So, your next destination is the patent office. You put on your least minus dented hat, gather your most professional minus looking schematics for prototype to now neatly redrawn with the grand new name inscribed at the top, and make your way to the formidable building on Chancery Lane. The patent office is the gatekeeper of innovation, the place where dreams are either officially sanctified or dismissed as unorigena. Walking into the grand hall is like stepping into a library of ambition. The air smells of old paper, bookbinding glue, and faint, lingering anxiety. Clerks with ink minus stained fingers scurry about, carrying stacks of documents tied with ribbon. Inventors, a motley crew of anxious minus looking men, sit on hard wooden benches, clutching leather portfolios to their chests. You can almost see the gears turning in their heads, the frantic calculations and last minus minute doubts. You are among your people the hopeful, the obsessed, the slightly mad. To apply for a patent, you must first search the existing records to ensure your idea is truly novel. This means descending into the archives, a labyrinth of shelves groaning under the weight of past inventions. They dry. Humorless clerk points you toward a cavernous room and leaves you to it. You are confronted with thousands of patent specifications, each one a little window into the hopes and follies of the human mind. You start searching for anything related to hats, etiquette, or automated clothing. At first, you find nothing. Your heart soars. You might be the first, but as you dig deeper, you begin to uncover the sheer, wonderful weirdness of the Victorian inventive spirit. You find a patent for a ventilating top hat, which features a small, hand-cranked fan on the inside to cool the wearer's head. You see diagrams for an aquatic walking machine, a pair of pontoon-like shoes that supposedly allow a gentleman to stride across a lake. You had serious doubts about its stability. There's a design for a typo-graphical composing and distributing machine that is so mind-bogglingly complex, it would require 3 men just to operate its levers and pedals. You stumble upon a whole category of inventions designed to solve minor domestic annoyances. There's a patent for a device to automatically butter toast, which involves a series of heated rollers and the butter reservoir. There's an anti-Scarro Tink robot, a reinforced necktie with hidden spikes, designed to thwart street criminals. It's a strange mix of profound optimism and deep seated paranoia. Then you find it, A patent from 20 years prior for a mechanical saluting apparatus. Your stomach plummets. It's a crude device, powered by a bellows hidden in a waistcoat pocket that the user would squeeze. The diagrams show a system of levers that would jerk the hat upward. It's clunky, obvious, and lacks any of the clockwork elegance of your salute or IUM. You read the specifications closely. It was never put into production. A failed idea that exists only on this brittle paper. You breathe a sigh of relief. Your use of a refined, self-contained clockwork mechanism and the advanced other- spring, your brilliant marketing term for a simple coil, makes your invention substantially different. It's a close call, but you're safe. Your idea is novel enough. This strange patent graveyard highlights a fascinating aspect of invention. Historians are still trying to figure out how many of these thousands of registered patents were ever actually produced. It's believed that a vast majority of them, perhaps over 90%, never went beyond the paper stage. They were dreams, defensive claims, or the products of obsessive minds who had the technical skill to design something, but not the business acumen or capital to manufacture it. The patent office, in this sense, is not just an archive of successes, but a mausoleum of beautiful, impractical failures. Feeling more confident, you proceed to the application stage. This involves filling out extensive paperwork, describing your invention in excruciating detail, from the exact number of teeth on each gear to the tensile strength of the mainspring. The language must be precise, legalistic, and utterly devoid of the poetic flair of your chosen name. You must claim what is unique about your invention, the specific combination of a clockwork escapement with a pneumatic trigger for the purpose of tipping a hat. The process is expensive. The fees for filing, examination, and sealing the patent are significant. A major chunk of your life savings. It's a huge gamble. You're betting everything on this strange little machine. You submit your documents to a stern-faced clerk who doesn't even blink at the title patent other-spring salute or IUM. He stamps your papers with a loud, satisfying thud and tells you that you will be notified of the examiner's decision in due course. Walking out of the patent office and back into the London smog, you feel a sense of accomplishment. You've navigated the bureaucratic maze. You've seen the ghosts of inventions past and confirmed your own originality. You have staked your official claim. The salute or IUM is no longer just an idea in your head or a prototype on your bench. It is now a pending application, a piece of intellectual property, a legitimate contender in the grand theater of progress. Now comes the hard part, the waiting. And while you wait for the official seal of approval, you have another, equally daunting task ahead: finding someone who will actually pay to have this thing made. You need to find an investor. The patent application is filed, a neat stack of paper representing all your hopes and a significant portion of your cash. But a patent is just a permission slip. It isn't a factory. To turn your beautiful brass - steel prototype into a product that people can actually buy, you need something far more elusive than a good idea. You need capital. You need to convince a man with a fat wallet that the world is crying out for an automated hat - tipping machine. Your target is a man named Mr. Abernathy. Josiah Abernathy is what they call new money. He made a fortune in textiles, specifically in the mass production of cheap, sturdy work - shirts. He is a man of industry, not of breeding. He owns a factory that chugs out smoke and profits in equal measure. But he secretly yearns for the one thing his money can't easily buy: social acceptance. He has a large house in a fashionable part of town, but the old money aristocrats still look down their noses at him. He is a man caught between two worlds: the grimy, practical world of manufacturing and the polished, baffling world of the upper class. You believe this makes him the perfect investor. He understands machines, and he desires status. Your salute or IUM is the bridge between those two worlds. You manage to secure a meeting through a letter of introduction from a distant acquaintance. The letter, you suspect, was read more for the quality of its expensive stationery than for the name of the person who signed it. You are instructed to present yourself at Mr. Abernethy's home at 3 o'clock on Thursday. You spend the 2 days prior in a state of nervous preparation. You build a new prototype. Prototype 0.5. This one is encased in a polished mahogany shell, with only a small, elegant brass keyhole visible. It's still a bit bulky, but it looks less like a bomb and more like a luxury scientific instrument. You practice your pitch in front of the small mirror in your room, trying to sound confident and visionary. On the appointed day, you arrive at Abernethy's townhouse. The door is opened by a butler who looks at you with an expression of profound disapproval, as if the very act of your standing on the doorstep has lowered the property value. He leads you through a hall filled with paintings that are too large and furniture that is too ornate, a classic display of a man trying to purchase taste. Mr. Abernethy is waiting for you in his study. HES, a large man with a florid face and a waistcoat that struggles to contain his prosperous belly. He is gruff, direct, and radiates an aura of deep impatience. He doesn't ask you to sit. Right then, he grunts, looking at the mahogany box you're holding. My man tells me you've invented something. Another blasted automatic teapot? If it is, you can see yourself out. I've had 3 of those pitched to me this month. No, sir, you say, your voice a little shakier than you'd hoped. It is a social aid, a device to ensure perfect etiquette in all public encounters. I call it the patent Heather-Midas Spring Salute, or IUM. Abernethy raises a skeptical eyebrow. The word Midas now. This is your moment. You launch into your carefully rehearsed pitch. You speak of the tyranny of the hat, the endless social pressures, the risk of a faux pas. You describe your device not as a convenience, but as an essential tool for the modern gentleman who wishes to navigate the complexities of society with effortless grace. You emphasize the precision, the clockwork elegance, the other-minded spring that makes it all possible. He listens, his expression unreadable. You can't tell if HES intrigued or just waiting for you to stop talking so he can have you thrown out. Let's see it, he says, cutting you off mid-minus sentence. With trembling hands, you open the case and present the prototype. He picks it up. You're relieved to see HES, a man who is comfortable with machines. He turns it over in his large hands, his thumb running over the smooth wood. His practical, industrialist's eye is assessing the craftsmanship. Mahogany shell, brass fittings, ductwork. It's well Midas made, he concedes. How does it work? You demonstrate, using the hand minus crank to win the spring and then pressing a small, discreet button on the side you've temporarily abandoned, the unreliable pneumatic trigger for this demonstration. The small lever on top of the device raises and lowers in a smooth, perfect arc. Click minus worm minus clack. Abernethy watches the motion, then looks back at you. And this goes on your head? Inside the hat, sir, completely discreet. He is silent for a long time, staring at the little machine. You can almost hear the cogs turning in his own mind. You expect him to laugh. You expect him to tell you it's the most ridiculous thing HES ever seen. Instead, he says, last week, I was at the Lord Mayor's reception. Saw a fellow I know from the stock exchange, chap named Hemmings. I gave him a nod. They nod. HES a baron now. Bought his title. He looked right through me. Made me feel like a blasted stable boy. Had to lift my hat to him later in the street. Felt like bowing. In that moment, you see the crack in his armor, the resentment, the insecurity. You haven't just built a machine. You've built a potential solution to his deepest social anxiety. Your device isn't about saving his arm from aching. It's about saving his pride. This taps into a rarely discussed aspect of Victorian society, the intense fluidity and anxiety surrounding social class. The Industrial Revolution created immense new wealth, and men like Abernethy were constantly trying to climb the ladder. while the old money was constantly trying to kick it out from under them. Etiquette was the primary weapon in this silent war. A missed hat tip wasn't just bad manners. It was a declaration of social inferiority. Whether Abernathy consciously understands, this is a point historians might debate, though you see the raw nerve you've touched. My salute, or IUN. Mr. Abernathy, you say softly, will never fail to offer the correct, respectful gesture. It makes politeness a science, not an art. It puts the user in control. He places the device back in its box and walks to the window, staring out at the street. It's a daft idea, he says, almost to himself, completely absurd. He turns back to you. But the world is full of daft men who pay a pretty penny to avoid looking like a fool. How much do you need to start production? Your heart leaps. It's the most beautiful question you have ever heard. You give him the figure you rehearsed, a sum that had seemed impossibly large in your little room, but suddenly feels entirely reasonable in this opulent study. He grunts again. You'll have my solicitor draw up the papers. You'll own 75% of the company. You'll be the chief engineer and the junior partner. Take it or leave it. 75%. It's a steep price. He'll own the lion's share of your dream. But it's a dream that, without his money, will never leave your workbench. It's the classic inventor's dilemma: creative control versus commercial reality. You'll take it, you say, without a moment's hesitation. You've done it. You found your money bags. The patent, Ether minus Spring Salute, or IUM, is about to become real. With Mr. Abernathy as capital secured, your world transforms overnight. You move out of your cramped Bloomsbury, flattened into a small but respectable office near his textile factory in Southwark. The romantic, solitary phase of invention is over. Now begins the noisy, grimy, and exhilarating process of mass production. Mr. Abernathy, true to his nature, is a man of action. He doesn't want to build a new factory for your daft idea. He allocates a forgotten, dust-minus-choked corner of his existing textile mill to the Salute or IUM enterprise. Your new workspace is a cavernous brick-minus-walled room with high, grimy windows that let in slivers of grey undine light. The air is thick with the smell of machine oil, hot metal, and the ever-present scent of damp wool from the main factory floor. The rhythmic thump of the giant steam engine that powers the entire mill is a constant, vibrating heartbeat that you feel in your teeth and bones. This is the micro-level reality of the Industrial Revolution. It's not an abstract concept from a history book. It's a sensory assault. It's the roar of machinery, the hiss of steam, the shouts of men over the din. You now have a small team of workers, men borrowed from Abernathy's regular workforce. They are not delicate watchmakers or artisans. They are factory hands, men with calloused, grease-stained fingers, more accustomed to wrestling with giant looms than assembling your miniature clockwork devices. Your first task is to translate your delicate prototype into something that can be manufactured efficiently and cheaply. This is a brutal lesson in compromise. The beautiful mahogany casing, too expensive. Abernathy insists on stamped tin. The fine, hand-filed brass gears, they are replaced with cheaper, cast-iron ones. Every elegant curve you designed is straightened. Every non-essential component is eliminated. Your beautiful Salute or IUM is being systematically stripped down to its bare, functional bones. It's a painful process, like watching a thoroughbred racehorse being turned into a plow mule. You clash constantly with the factory foreman, a grizzled, pragmatic man named Briggs. Briggs sees your invention as a pointless effervescence, a distraction from the serious business of making shirts. This little cog here, you might say, pointing to a schematic. Its teeth must be beveled at a precise 30-degree angle to ensure a smooth engagement. Briggs will squint at the drawing, wipe his oily hands on a rag, then reply, "Beveling takes time. Time is money. Can't we just use a standard straight minus cut gear? It'll make a bit of a clatter, but it'll do the job. Every conversation is a battle between your vision of perfection and his vision of profitability. More often than not, Briggs and Abernathy win. The final product will not be the silent, ethereal device you imagined. It will be a sturdy, functional, and slightly noisy machine. The click minus whir minus clack of your prototype becomes a more industrial clunk minus grind minus snap. You also get a crash course in the social dynamics of the factory floor. You are the inventor, the gentleman in the clean collar, and the workers view you with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. They are the ones who have to perform the repetitive, mind-minus-numbing tasks of stamping the casings, cutting the springs, and assembling the components, all for a wage that is a tiny fraction of the projected profits. There's a fascinating but often overlooked aspect of industrialization here: the specialization of labor. In your workshop, you were the designer, engineer, and craftsman all in one. Here, the process is broken down into dozens of tiny, repetitive steps. One man spends his entire day cutting lengths of wire for the triggers. Another operates a press that stamps out the lifting plates. The monotonous curve minus chunk that marks the passing of his day. It's incredibly efficient, but it strips the craft and soul from the work. Historians still debate the full psychological impact of this transition from holistic craft to fragmented labor on the 19th century worker. You are witnessing it firsthand. One day, you find a small, whimsical modification one of the workers has made on the inside of a tin casing, where no customer would ever see it. He has scratched a tiny, crude caricature of a man whose hat is flying off his head. It's a small act of creative rebellion, a human touch in the midst of mechanical reproduction. You should be annoyed at the defacement of your product, but instead, you feel a strange sense of connection. You quietly let it pass. Despite the compromises, seeing the production line take shape is thrilling. Crates of raw materials come in one end of the room, and at the other end, a steady trickle of finished solute or IUMs emerges. They are packed into small cardboard boxes with a leaflet you designed yourself, featuring an elegant drawing of a gentleman tipping his hat. The drawing, of course, shows a far more graceful device than the one in the box and the proud title The Abernathy Co. Patent tether minus spring salute or IUM, the modern gentleman's indispensable companion. Abernathy had insisted on his name being first and foremost. Within a few weeks, you have a stockpile of several hundred units. They sit on shelves, silent and ready. The factory noise, the arguments with Briggs, the smell of oil and smog, it all fades away when you look at them. You've done it. You've turned an idea, a fleeting vision on a busy street, into a tangible, manufactured object. You are no longer just an inventor. You are a producer, a captain of a very, very small industry. Now you have to sell them. Abernathy is growing impatient. His investment is sitting on these shelves, collecting dust. It's time to show London and the world the miracle of automated etiquette. It's time for a public demonstration. And this time, you're determined not to launch your hat into the path of a horse. Mr. Abernathy, being a man who understands promotion, declares that the salute, or IUM, needs a grand public debut. He dismisses your traumatic first field test as a pre-production mishap. This time, it will be official, organized, and, in his words, unavoidably impressive. He chooses the venue Hyde Park on a Sunday afternoon. It's the perfect stage. Hyde Park on a Sunday is the living theater of London society. Everyone who is anyone and everyone who wants to be seen by anyone is there, strolling along the Serpentine, riding in carriages, and engaging in the complex ritual of seeing on being seen. It's the natural habitat of your target audience. Abernathy arranges for a small, slightly elevated platform to be erected near Rotten Row, the famous bridle path. He hires a small brass band to attract a crowd and has his textile company's delivery cart, freshly painted, bring in a large crate of your product. The plan is for you, the inventor, to demonstrate the salute or IUM's flawless operation. You are filled with a deep, liquid dread. The memory of the flying bowler hat is seared into your brain. You've tested the production models. Of course, they are functional. The clunky, cast-iron gears and the stamped-tin casing make a rather agricultural sound. A sort of clone came -CISDZ-DHWUMP. But they do work. Mostly. You've found that about 1 in every 10 units has a slight hesitation in its lifting mechanism, and 1 in 20 has a spring that is a little too enthusiastic. You pray you get a good one for the demonstration. The day arrives, bright and unforgivingly sunny. A crowd gathers, drawn by the music and the general spectacle. You see a mix of faces, curious dandies, skeptical looking matrons, giggling children, and a few of Abernathy's business rivals, no doubt hoping for a disaster. Abernathy himself stands to the side of the platform, his chest puffed out, looking every bit the proud industrialist. You climb onto the platform, your heart hammering against your ribs. You are wearing your finest suit and a brand new top hat, under which a specially selected salute, or IUM, is nestled. You feel its weight, the familiar pressure on your scalp. Ladies and gentlemen, Abernathy bellows, his factory owner's voice easily cutting through the park's chatter. Prepare to witness a revolution in social decorum, an end to the awkward gesture, the missed salutation. I present to you the inventor, the genius behind it all, and his miraculous creation, the patent tether spring salute, or IUM. All eyes are on you. You manage a weak, terrified smile. You begin your speech, your voice cracking at first. You talk about the burdens of modern life, the relentless demands of etiquette. You see a few gentlemen in the crowd nodding in weary agreement. You're connecting. This might actually work. But what if? You proclaim, your confidence growing. Politeness could be as reliable, as precise, as the very clock in your pocket. What if the gesture of respect could be perfected? It's time for the demonstration. You've decided against the head-nod trigger, opting for the more reliable wired button that runs down your sleeve to your hand. You spot your target, a distinguished looking older gentleman walking a small, fluffy dog. As he passes the platform, you turn to face him, give a slight bow, and discreetly press the button. CLON came -CISDZ-DHWUMP. The hat lifts. It rises a solid 4 inches, holds for a perfect regulation 2 seconds, and then lowers itself back onto your head. It's a little loud, but it's flawless. A ripple of surprised murmurs goes through the crowd. Someone actually applauds. You feel a surge of pure, unadulterated triumph. You do it again for a passing lady. Flawless. And again for a man in a carriage. Flawless. The crowd is warming up. They are intrigued. This isn't a joke. It's a real, working machine. Abernathy is beaming. He gestures for a crate of the devices to be opened, available for purchase today, for the modest sum of 1 guinea. He booms. This is where things start to go wrong. The young, foppish man with more money than sense buys one on the spot, eager to try it out. He immediately fits it inside his own hat and places it on his head. He turns to his female companion with a smug grin, bows dramatically, and presses the button. His salute, or IUM, it seems, is one of the enthusiastic ones. His hat doesn't just lift. It springs from his head with surprising velocity, as if eager to escape. It flips over and lands perfectly, brim up, on the head of the fluffy little dog belonging to the old gentleman. The dog, utterly bewildered by its new, oversized accessory, lets out a series of yaps and starts running in panic circles. The owner chases the dog, the hat bouncing precariously. The young man chases the owner. His female companion bursts into peals of laughter. The crowd, which had been on the verge of being impressed, now erupts in hysterics. What was a moment of scientific marvel has instantly become a piece of public comedy. It gets worse. Another man who bought one fumbles with the winning key. He overwins it. There is a sickening TWANG from inside his hat, followed by a faint wisp of smoke as the mainspring snaps and the whole mechanism grinds to a permanent, tragic halt. He looks at you with an expression of pure betrayal. This kind of public demonstration was a double-edged sword for Victorian innovators. It was the best way to get attention, but it also meant there was no hiding from failure. There's a possibly apocryphal but telling story about an inventor demonstrating a new type of fire extinguisher who accidentally set the demonstration curtains on fire. Whether it's true or not, historians agree that these live events were high-stakes gambles. You are living that gamble. Then you are losing. You stand frozen on the platform, a rictus grin plastered on your face as you watch the chaos unfold. Abernathy's face has gone from proud to thunderous. The brass band, unsure of what to do, hesitantly starts playing another tune, a jaunty number that serves as a deeply inappropriate soundtrack to your crumbling dream. By the end of the afternoon, you've sold a grand total of 7 salute or IUMs. 2 of them are known to be defective, and 1 is currently being worn by a terrified poodle. It's not a revolution, it's a farce. As you pack up the unsold stock, Abernathy claps you on the shoulder, a gesture that feels less like comfort and more like a threat. "Well, boy," he says through gritted teeth, "we've got our work cut out for us." The public debut of the salute, or IUM, was not a triumph. It was a memorable, embarrassing, and very, very public disaster. The Hyde Park demonstration was a fiasco. The story of the flying hat and the poodle turned hats, and has become a minor piece of city gossip, whispered with snickers in gentlemen's clubs and drawing rooms. Abernathy is fuming, not just about the public humiliation, but about the unsold inventory. Hundreds of 10-case salute or IUMs are sitting in his factory, a monument to his impulsive investment. His patience is wearing thin. It's not the product that's wrong, he grumbles at you during a grim meeting in his office. It's the customer. We're aiming at the wrong sort of chap. We need to think like proper businessmen, not like you. This forces you into a role you never anticipated, market researcher. You must move beyond the technical challenges of your invention and confront the much more complex machinery of the human psyche. Who, in the vast, sprawling metropolis of London, would actually want to buy your device? Especially now that it has a faint aura of comedy attached to it. You and Abernathy sit down to strategize, essentially creating a customer profile, a practice that modern marketing firms would recognize, but which you are inventing out of sheer desperation. Your first target profile is the socially anxious clerk. This is a young man, perhaps recently arrived in London from the provinces. He works in a counting house or a solicitor's office. He is terrified of the city's complex social codes. He lies awake at night replaying every interaction, wondering if his hat tip to the senior partner was too familiar, or his lift to the partner's wife too brief. For him, the salute or IUM isn't a luxury, it's a shield. It's a way to outsource his social anxiety to a reliable machine. He wouldn't care if it's a bit clunky or makes a noise. The peace of mind it offers would be priceless. He is your most logical customer. The problem is, he probably can't afford the 1- skinny price tag. Then there's your investor's favorite category, the nouveau rich industrialist. This is a man like Abernathy himself. He has money, power, and a factory, but he lacks the pedigree and the effortless social grace of the aristocracy he desperately wants to emulate. He buys art he doesn't understand and serves wine he can't pronounce. This man is a prime candidate. He would buy the salute or IUM for the same reason he buys oversized furniture, as a shortcut to sophistication. He sees it as a tool, a piece of modern technology that can help him master the baffling rules of the upper class game. He can certainly afford it, but his primary motivation is fear of looking foolish, and given the Hyde Park incident, He might worry the device would do the exact opposite of what he wants. You propose a third, more niche market, the elderly gentleman. Think of a retired colonel or a senior barrister. His hands gnarled with arthritis, his movements stiff. For him, the constant doffing of his hat is not a social burden, but a physical one. Each gesture is a twinge of pain. The salute or IUM would offer genuine, practical relief. This is a strong angle. It reframes the device from a social novelty to a piece of assistive technology, almost a medical aid. This is a very Victorian way of thinking. The era saw a boom in all sorts of health-giving gadgets and apparatuses, from electric corsets that promised to improve posture to magnetic belts that claimed to cure rheumatism. Framing the salute or IUM in this quasi-medical context could give it a respectability it currently lacks. Abernathy suggests another, more cynical target: the dandy or the man about town. This is the young, fashionable fellow who sees himself as being on the cutting edge. He is always the first to adopt a new style of collar, a new way of tying his cravat, a new slang word. He might buy the salute or IUM not because he needs it, but purely for the novelty. He would see it as a conversation piece, a way to signal his modernity and his slightly rebellious, ironic take on old fashion traditions. He's the man who would have found the poodle incident hilarious and might want to buy the device because of its potential for chaos, not despite it. This is a fickle market. However, his attention is fleeting, and he would drop the salute or IUM the moment a new novelty came along. As you map out these potential buyers, you're delving into the very structure of Victorian society. You're analyzing its anxieties, its aspirations, and its vanities. It's a society deeply stratified by class, but also one with a surprising amount of movement and friction between those classes. Historians continue to debate the true rigidity of these social boundaries. Were they iron walls, or were they more permeable, constantly being negotiated through signals like dress, speech, and, of course, the proper tipping of a hat? Your little machine sits right at the heart of that negotiation. Armed with these profiles, Abernathy devises a new, multi-pronged sales strategy. For the anxious clerk, he'll consider a cheaper, no-frills model made with even more tin. You shudder to think. For the nouveau rich, he'll commission a few deluxe models with a polished brass casing and a silk-lined box, to be sold at a premium in a posh Burlington arcade shop. For the elderly, the advertisements will be placed in serious, respectable journals, emphasizing comfort and physical relief. And for the dandy, you'll just have to hope they stumble upon it and find it amusing enough to purchase. You are no longer just an inventor dealing with gears and springs. You are a student of human nature. You realize that selling the salute or IUM has less to do with its mechanical function and more to do with understanding and exploiting the silent fears and desires of your potential customers. The machine is simple. The people it's designed for are infinitely complex. Your job has just become much harder. With your new marketing strategy in place, the salute or IUM is begin to trickle out into the world. You've sold a few of the deluxe models to men who resemble Abernathy, a handful of the standard versions to nervous-looking clerks, and even received a grateful letter from an elderly gentleman in Bath who claims the device has done wonders for his rheumatic shoulder. It's not a roaring success, but it's not a complete failure either. Your invention now exists in the wild, an active participant in the complex ecosystem of London society. This allows you to become an observer, a field biologist studying the effect of your creation on its natural habitat. Specifically, you become fascinated by how the salute or IUM is perceived in that most delicate and high stakes of Victorian rituals courtship. How do women react when a potential suitor's hat tips itself? You spend your lunch hours in the parks and on the fashionable thoroughfares where courting couples promenade. It's a carefully choreographed dance. A young man and woman walk together, always with the chaperone a few paces behind. A human buffer zone ensuring no impropriety. Every interaction is public, every gesture scrutinized. One afternoon, you spot one of your devices in action. A young man, well, mine is dressed but with an air of profound awkwardness, is strolling with a young lady and her hawk-side mother. You recognize him as the son of one of Abernathy's suppliers. He clearly bought the device to boost his confidence. As they approach another couple, the young man prepares for the crucial hat-dip. Instead of the potentially clumsy manual gesture, he discreetly presses the button in his palm. CLOM came eines T, Isis ye, eines THWUMP. The hat lifts, hovers, and descends. It's a mechanically perfect, if somewhat noisy, gesture of respect. The young man beams, proud of his technological prowess. You, however, are focused on the reactions of the women. The young lady's reaction is fascinating. First, there's a flicker of surprise, her eyes widening at the unexpected sound and motion. This is followed by a barely suppressed smile. It's not a mocking smile, like the ones in Hyde Park. It's a smile of genuine amusement, of delight in the novelty. The machine is a spectacle, a little piece of theater in the middle of a stuffy afternoon walk. It makes the young man interesting. HES not just another suitor. HES the one with the mechanical hat. The chaperone's reaction, however, is one of stern disapproval. Her lips press into a thin, hard line. To her, this is not charmingly modern. It's a trick. It's cheating. Politeness, in her view, should be an expression of character, the proper upbringing. It should be a natural, ingrained reflex. To automate it is to render it meaningless. The gesture, divorced from genuine human effort, becomes an empty, metallic lie. She sees the young man not as innovative, but as lazy, or worse, insincere. Herein lies the deep cultural tension of the Victorian era. It was a society obsessed with both industrial progress and the idea of innate moral character. Your salute or IUM pits these two values directly against each other. Is a gentleman defined by his mastery of modern tools or by his adherence to traditional virtues? The debate on this topic raged in newspapers and journals of the time, with commentators arguing whether new technologies were liberating humanity or eroding its soul. Your little hat-stipper has become a case study in this grand debate. You continue your observations over the next few weeks. The pattern holds true. Younger women often seem charmed by the salute, or IUN. It's a mark of a forward-thinking man, one who is not afraid of the future. It's a great icebreaker. One young lady was overheard saying, "Oh, Mr. Finney, do make your hat do its little trick again." It turned the man from a suitor into an entertainer. Older women, and almost all chaperones and mothers, are deeply suspicious. They see it as a sign of weakness, a mechanical crutch for a man who lacks the basic social graces, a man who cannot be trusted to tip his own hat. They reason, can hardly be trusted with a daughter's heart and future. This reveals a strange and little discussed aspect of Victorian courtship, the role of technology in romance. While we think of their courtships as being all about handwritten letters and whispered poetry, the 19th century was also the age of the telegraph, the telephone, and the photograph. These new technologies were slowly creeping into the rituals of love and marriage. Sending a photograph was a bold, modern way of introducing oneself. A telegram could deliver an urgent message of affection far faster than the post. However, these innovations were often seen as slightly vulgar and impersonal compared to traditional methods. There's a great deal of historical speculation on how these new gadgets changed the rhythm and feel of human connection. The salute or IUM is simply a more bizarre and personal example of this technological intrusion. A suitor with the salute or IUM is making a gamble. He might win the daughter's affection by appearing modern and amusing, but he risks earning the mother's immediate and unshakable disapproval. And in a society where a woman's marriage prospects were largely controlled by her parents. Alienating the mother was a fatal strategic error. You realize your invention is not just a simple machine. It's a social filter. It's a device that sorts people by their attitudes towards progress, tradition, sincerity, and novelty. It might help a man get a date, but it could very well cost him a marriage. The path of your little metal contraption through the intricate world of London society is far more complicated than you ever imagined. It's a reminder that when you invent something, you can't control how the world will interpret and use it. Your marketing efforts, particularly the angle targeting elderly gentlemen with physical ailments, have borne some unexpected fruit. One of your salute or IUM has been purchased by a drive. Alistair Finch, a physician with a fashionable practice on Harley Street. Dr. Finch is not a customer in the traditional sense. He is a man of science, and he has acquired your device not for personal use, but for professional study. He sends you a formal, hand-written letter inviting you to his office to discuss the biomasculine neurological implications of your invention. The invitation is both flattering and terrifying. A man of medicine wants to seriously analyze your gadget. This could be a huge boon for publicity. A doctor's endorsement would be worth more than 1,000 newspaper ads. It could also be a disaster if he deems it a dangerous piece of quackery. You arrive at his Harley Street practice, a street synonymous with medical authority and expensive treatments. The waiting room is hushed and intimidating, filled with anxious looking patients. You are ushered into Drive Finch's consulting room, which is a perfect reflection of the Victorian medical mind. One half is a respectable gentleman's study, with leather bound books and a large oak desk. The other half is a chamber of scientific horrors, with glass cabinets displaying anatomical models, gleaming surgical instruments, and unsettling jars filled with preserved specimens. Dr. Finch is a tall, thin man with piercing eyes behind steel-rimmed spectacles. He has an air of supreme intellectual confidence. On his desk, next to a human skull that he uses as a paperweight, sits your salute or IUM, partially disassembled. A fascinating apparatus. My dear boy, he begins, gesturing for you to sit. A truly remarkable application of clockwork to the challenges of the human condition. You relax slightly. This sounds promising. I have been considering the device's effect on the physical structure of man, he continues, steepling his long fingers. The modern gentleman, with his sedentary lifestyle, suffers from a general drooping of the posture, a scholarly slump. We call it your device, by adding a not insignificant weight to the cranium, forces the wearer to actively engage the muscles of the neck and upper spine to maintain an upright position. In short, it may inadvertently be a tool for postural correction. A man who wears your salute or IUM may find himself standing straighter, presenting a more robust and vigorous figure to the world. This is an angle you had never even considered. Your heavy, clunky machine as a form of physiotherapy. It's absurd. But Dr. Finch delivers this opinion with such authority that you find yourself nodding along. However, he says, his tone shifting, I have graver concerns regarding its effect on the brain. He picks up a small, pointed instrument and taps the side of the skull on his desk. The brain, as we are coming to understand, is an engine of habit. The gestures of politeness the hat step. The bow are not mere contrivances. They are pathways, grooves etched into the cerebral matter through repetition. They are the physical manifestation of a well-ordered mind. He leans forward, his expression intense. By outsourcing this function to a machine, what are we doing to these delicate neural pathways? Do they wither? Does the muscle of social grace atrophy from disuse? Is it possible that a man who relies on your salute or IUM will, over time, find himself less capable of genuine, unassisted politeness? He may even find his moral compass slightly demagnetized, his capacity for sincere respect diminished. This is classic Victorian medical theory. It's a mixture of genuine anatomical knowledge, wild speculation, and moral philosophy all mashed together. The idea that moral character was physically located in the brain and could be strengthened or weakened like a muscle was a popular one. Phrenology, the pseudoscience of reading personality from the bumps on a person's skull, was only just beginning to fall out of fashion, and its influence lingered. Dr. Finch isn't just a doctor. HES, a moral philosopher with a medical degree. The question of whether technology makes us dumber or weaker is, of course, a debate that still rages today in the context of smartphones and GPS. Historians see this as a recurring techno-minus panic that appears whenever a new invention changes a fundamental human habit. Dr. Finch is an early, eloquent voice in this long-minus running argument. Furthermore, the doctor adds, warming to his theme, consider the phenomenon of phantom limb in amputees. The brain retains a memory, a ghost of the missing appendage. I hypothesize a similar, though inverted, condition could arise from your device. I.e., phantom gesture. A man becomes so accustomed to the machine's action that his own arm forgets its duty. He might find himself in a situation without his hat, or with a malfunctioning device, and be struck by a sudden, paralytic social awkwardness, his own limbs refusing the familiar command. The machine, intended as a servant, could become a cruel master. He sits back, apparently satisfied with his dire pronouncements. He has diagnosed your invention with the potential to cause pastoral benefits, neural atrophy, and a new psychological malady he has essentially just invented. He concludes by telling you he intends to write a paper on his observations for a medical journal. He asks if you would be willing to provide him with several more units for a small, controlled study he wishes to conduct on some of his less-minus discerning patients. You leave the consulting room in a daze. Your head is swimming with phrases like pastoral correction and neural atrophy. You came here seeking a simple endorsement, a marketing tool. Instead, you have been given a complex, bewildering, and slightly terrifying diagnosis of your own creation. Dr. has elevated your silly hat-minus tipping machine into a subject of serious medical debate. He has wrapped it in the intimidating language of science and pathology. Strangely, this might be even better than a simple endorsement. Your device is no longer just a novelty. It's a controversy. It's a topic for serious men to discuss in serious journals. And in the Victorian world, being controversial was often the next best thing to being successful. The weeks following your meeting with Finch are strange. His promised article has not yet appeared, but word of his study has begun to leak out, creating a low buzz of curiosity around your invention. Sales have seen a slight, almost imperceptible uptick. It seems that being the subject of medical concern is a fantastic marketing tool. But success, even of this mild and peculiar sort, breeds imitation. One morning, Abernathy storms into your office, his face the color of a ripe plum. He throws a copy of the Daily Telegraph onto your desk. Look at this. Boy, we've got competition. He roars. You pick up the paper. There, on page 3, next to advertisements for liver pills and reinforced courses, is a large, professionally drawn ad. It depicts a handsome, mustachioed gentleman smiling beatific ally as a complex device on his head performs some unseen function. The headline reads, "Tired of social strain? Announcing the Coventry Steam-powered courtesy assistant." Your heart sinks. It's a direct competitor, and from the looks of it, a much more ambitious one. The advertisement's text is a masterpiece of florid prose. It dismisses crude clockwork novelties, a clear shot at you, and promotes its own patented miniature steam-pressure system as the pinnacle of silent, powerful, and elegant operation. It claims to offer not just a hat-tip, but a range of calibrated gestures, from a subtle brim-flick to a full, ceremonial doffing, all controlled by a discrete dial on the user's waistcoat. This is more than competition. It's an arms race, a social etiquette arms race. You had a monopoly on automated politeness for a glorious few months, but the market has responded. You spend the day trying to learn more about your new rival. The company is based in Coventry, a city known for its bicycle and clock minus making industries, so they have the engineering pedigree. The inventor, a man named Theodore Sledge, seems to be your shadow minus self-ambitious, clever, and apparently better minus funded. His steam minus powered system is, from an engineering standpoint, both brilliant and insane. The idea of strapping a pressurized, high minus temperature steam boiler, no matter how small, to a person's head is a notion of such magnificent recklessness that you can't help but feel a twinge of professional jealousy. It makes your safe, reliable clockwork seem quaint and old minus fashioned. A few weeks later, another one appears. This time it's an ad in a society magazine for the Parisian pneumatic solar. This one is all about style. The advertisement emphasizes its French origins, even if it was probably made in a shed in Birmingham. Its lightweight construction, and its whisper minus quiet operation, powered by a system of compressed air bulbs hidden in the user's pockets. It's marketed towards the dandy, the fashionable man who would find your salute, or IUM and Sledge's courtesy, assistant to be far too industrial and English. The Parisian model is positioned as chic, continental, and effortlessly cool. You are now in a 3-way battle for the soul of the lazy gentleman. It's a perfect microcosm of the wider industrial world. The British are competing on power and reliability, your clockwork versus Sledge's steam, while the French are competing on style and sophistication. Tabernathi, ever the fighter, wants to retaliate. We need a new model, he declares. The Salute or IUM Marquis. More power, more features. What if it could also dispense a small puff of scented cologne? Or perhaps a calling card? We must innovate, boy, or we'll be buried. The pressure is immense. You are forced to spend your evenings at the drafting table, trying to dream up new features to compete. A cologne dispenser seems impractical and would likely stain the hat. A calling card dispenser is a marvel of miniaturization, but the potential for paper jams is a nightmare. You feel like a general being forced to add bigger and bigger cannons to your battleship, with no regard for whether the ship can stay afloat. This phenomenon of feature creep is something modern tech developers know all too well, but it was just as present in the 19th century. This era saw a wild proliferation of combination gadgets. There were walking sticks that contained hidden flasks, telescopes, and even firearms. There were pocket knives with 20 different tools, most of which were entirely useless. The belief was that more was always better. The market for automated etiquette is following the same pattern. It's not enough to tip a hat. Now you have to do it with steam, with scented mist, with a Gallic sense of flair. The most fascinating and dubious part of this arms race is that it's largely happening on paper. While you have a real, albeit flawed, product, it's unclear if your competitors do. The Coventry steam minus powered courtesy assistant sounds dangerously volatile. Historians often debate how many heavily advertised Victorian products were ever truly viable or widely sold. Advertising in the 19th century was notoriously unregulated, filled with wild exaggerations and outright lies. It's entirely possible that the courtesy assistant is little more than a clever drawing and a bold claim, designed to attract investors or scare off competitors like you. Sledge might not have a factory at all. He might just have a very good illustrator. Regardless, the threat feels real. You are now in a constant state of low-grade paranoia, scouring the papers each morning for signs of a new rival. You imagine a world where every gentleman on the street has a different, competing device whirring and hissing under his hat. A world where a simple walk in the park becomes a cacophony of competing courtesy minus machines. A symphony of quiet hisses, and poofs of compressed air. Your simple, elegant solution to a simple, silly problem has spawned a monstrous new industry. You have to decide whether to join the mad race to add more features, or to stick to your original vision of simple, effective if slightly noisy automation. The future of your company depends on it. In the midst of the escalating etiquette arms, race and Abernathy's demands for a cologne minus dispensing super minus hat, you receive a letter. It's not from a doctor, an investor, or a competitor. It's written in a looping, theatrical script on cheap, garish paper. The letterhead reads G-Rock Marley S. Grand Panopticon of Mechanical Marvels Living Curiosities. It's a traveling show, a type of popular entertainment that tours the smaller towns and villages, a down-market cousin of the grand exhibitions in London. They feature a bizarre mix of attractions, wax figures of famous murderers, flea circuses, magicians, sword-swallowers, and a collection of scientific displays that are usually more showmanship than science. The proprietor, a Mr. Phineas G. Rock, has seen an advertisement for your salute or IUM. He is not interested in its application for gentleman's etiquette. He writes, I am a purveyor of the astonishing. Your device, sir, is not a tool of politeness. It is an instrument of double UONDR. I wish to purchase a dozen units for a new attraction I am devising. One that will bring gasps of amazement from the common man and woman. Abernathy is dismissive. A Todd Carnival show? We are selling a luxury item for gentlemen, not a prop for clowns. But you are intrigued. Then frankly, a sale of 12 units is a sale of 12 units. You convince Abernathy to agree, and a week later, a man with a suspiciously waxed mustache arrives in a garishly painted wagon to collect the devices. You try to explain their proper operation, but he just winks and says, Don't you worry, Professor, Mr. G. Rock has a vision. You hear nothing for 2 months. You almost forget about the strange transaction. Busy as you are with fending off imaginary, steam-powered competitors. Then, a letter arrives from a cousin of yours who lives in a small market town in Essex. Dearest cousin, that reads, I saw the most peculiar thing at a traveling show today. It was a most curious act involving a monkey. And it made me think of you and your unusual line of work. The monkey. Your blood runs cold. Driven by a morbid curiosity you can't quite explain, you take a train out to the next town on G-Rock, Marley's advertised tour route. You find their show set up in a muddy field on the edge of town. A large, garishly painted banner flaps in the wind. It depicts a chimpanzee, dressed in a tiny smoking jacket and bowler hat, bowing to a crowd of astonished looking people. The text below reads PE. DHOLD SPANKY THEPOLITIKAPE, the only simian in Christendom to have mastered the intricacies of human etiquette. A scientific miracle. You pay your tuppence and enter the tent. Inside, a small crowd is gathered around a makeshift stage, and there, sitting on a velvet draped stool, is a rather bored looking chimpanzee. On its head is a tiny bowler hat. Mr. G. Rock, the proprietor, a man with a booming voice and a waistcoat that has seen better days, is acting as master of ceremonies. Ladies and gentlemen, he proclaims, you have seen apes that can ride bicycles. You have seen apes that can drink tea. But never before have you witnessed an ape that understands the very foundations of civil society. Observe. He gestures to a young woman he has pulled from the audience. She stands nervously on the stage. Now, Spanky, Joe Rock commands, show the pretty lady some respect. Joe Rock, you realize, is holding a small rubber bulb in his hand, the wire trailing discreetly up his sleeve, and then you can just make it out. Behind the backdrop and up the leg of the stool Spanky is sitting on, he gives the bulb a squeeze. From under the chimp's hat comes the familiar CLOM, CIs, easy THWUMP of your invention. The tiny bowler hat lifts off Spanky's head, holds for a moment, and then lowers itself. The effect is utterly surreal. It's a perfect, mechanical gesture of politeness performed by an animal that is probably just thinking about its next banana. The crowd gasps. A few people applaud. They are completely taken in. They are not seeing a machine. They are seeing a scientific miracle. An ape that has somehow been taught the manners of a gentleman. It's a brilliant, cynical, and hilarious deception. This is a use for your invention that you could never have conceived of in a million years. You designed it to solve a problem of the highest stratum of human society. And here it is, being used to create a low-breathy, atrical illusion involving a primate. It's a perfect example of how an inventor loses all control over their creations, meaning the moment it goes out into the world. The user, or in this case, the showman, defines its purpose. This strange corner of Victorian entertainment is a world that historians are fascinated by. It was a realm where science, spectacle, and outright fraud were inextricably linked. The public had a voracious appetite for marvels and were oft unwilling to believe the most outlandish claims, especially if they were presented with a bit of scientific sounding language. Shows like Xerox were the popular science documentaries of their day, albeit with far less accuracy and far more monkeys in hats. Your salute or IUM, a genuine piece of engineering, has been co-opted into this world of smoke and mirrors. After the show, you approach Mr. Xerox. He recognizes you immediately on beams, slapping you on the back. "Ugh, the inventor," he booms. "A genius. Your machine is the talk of every town we visit. Spankai is a star, and it's all thanks to your magnificent contraption." You told people the monkey is doing it himself, you say, a little weakly. "Of course, my boy. That's the magic. That's the showmanship. If I told them it was a machine, where's the wonder in that? You sell a tool for gentlemen. I sell astonishment. We're both in the business of illusions. You and I. Yours is just a little more subtle." You watch as the chimp, its hat now removed by a handler, contentedly peels a banana. Mr. Xerox's words hang in the air. Are you that different? You sell a machine that creates the illusion of effortless grace. He uses the same machine to create the illusion of a well-mannered ape. In a way, the HCTR right. He then places another order, this time for 24 units. "The act is so popular," he says with a wink. "I'm thinking of expanding. A whole family of polite primates. It'll be a dynasty." You walk away from the muddy field feeling bewildered, slightly compromised, and strangely proud. Your invention might not be taking high society by storm, but it has found its most enthusiastic and creative customer. The patent tether minus spring salute, or IUM, is officially a hit in the provincial carnival circuit. The money from Mr. Xerox's polite primate empire is a welcome, if slightly absurd, revenue stream, but it does little to satisfy Abernathy's ambition or your own. You didn't get into this business to D-hat chimpanzees. You got into it to revolutionize human society. The ultimate validation, the grandest stage you can imagine, is not a muddy field in Essex, but the glittering heart of the British Empire's industrial pride, the Great Exhibition. Well, not the original Great Exhibition of 1851. Of course, that was decades ago. A legendary event housed in the magnificent Turbis-built Crystal Palace, but the spirit of that exhibition lives on. Smaller, more specialized international fairs and expositions are held regularly in London and other major cities, celebrating industry, arts, and commerce. A major international exposition of mechanical arts has just been announced to be held in a massive hall in South Kensington. This, you decide, is your chance for redemption. This is where the salute or IUM will be judged not by giggling dandies or carnival goers, but by serious men of science, industry, and international commerce. It's a chance to erase the memory of the Hyde Park poodle and establish your invention as a serious piece of engineering. Abernathy, seeing the potential for attracting wealthy international buyers, agrees. Securing a booth is expensive and difficult. You have to submit your patent, technical drawings, and letters of recommendation. You strategically include a redacted and very vague summary of drive. Finch's study on the pastoral benefits of the device, making it sound far more medically significant than it was. To your immense joy and surprise, your application is accepted. You are allocated a small but respectable 10- by -10- foot booth in the Hall of Domestic and Personal Apparatus. The preparation is frantic. Abernathy, for once, spares no expense. He commissions a beautiful display stand made of polished mahogany, with velvet draping and delicate gas lamps. You worked tirelessly in the factory, supervising the creation of a dozen flawless exhibition-grade salute or IUMIS. These are the devices you dreamed of making in the first place. Their casings are polished brass, not tin. Their gears are hand-finished and whisper-quiet. Each one is a work of art, a perfect marriage of form and function. The opening day of the exposition is overwhelming. The hall is a cavernous space, a cathedral of noise and motion. The air rings with the hiss of steam engines, the whir of dynamos, and the chatter of a dozen languages. You are surrounded by the technological marvels of your age. To your left is a demonstration of a new telephone switching system, connecting calls with a dazzling display of flashing lights. To your right, a German company is showing off a new, highly efficient internal combustion engine. Across the aisle, an American inventor is demonstrating a typograph, an early typewriter that promises to revolutionize office work. You feel very, very small. Your little hat-tipping machine seems frivolous, almost pathetic, compared to these world-changing technologies. Your booth is situated in a slightly more whimsical section of the hall. Your neighbors are a diverse and eccentric bunch. You're next to a man demonstrating a self-lacing boot, an incredibly complex device involving a system of pulleys and levers that seems more likely to break a man's ankle than to tie his shoes. A few booths down, a Swiss company is exhibiting an automated bird in a gilded cage that sings a different tune every hour. It's the island of misfit inventions. Historians studying these great exhibitions often focus on the big ticket items, the giant steam hammers, the first automobiles. But the reality on the ground was a chaotic jumble of the sublime and the ridiculous. For every telephone, there were a dozen self-lacing boots. The exhibitions were a snapshot of the inventive mind of the era, in all its genius, its practicality, and its utter absurdity. The line between a visionary and a crackpot was often just the width of a velvet rope. You spend the first day demonstrating your polished salute or IUM to a trickle of polite, but mostly indifferent passers-by. They nod, murmur how clever, and then hurry on to see the telephone. You begin to feel a familiar sense of despair creeping in. Then, on the second day, a small, distinguished looking man with a neat white beard and a notebook approaches your booth. He introduces himself in heavily accented English as a representative from the Horological Guild of Switzerland. He is not interested in the hat-tipping function at all. He is captivated by the clockwork. He asks you to open one of the exhibition models. With reverence, he examines the delicate escapement, the perfectly calibrated governor fan, the quality of the mainspring. He asks you about the gear ratios, the tolerances of the components. He is speaking your original language, the language of the artisan, not the marketer. He doesn't see a novelty gadget. He sees a beautiful piece of miniature mechanical engineering. In my country, he says, his eyes gleaming, this would be appreciated. The craftsmanship, the precision. We understand things that are small and perfect. He doesn't place an order. He doesn't promise you anything. But his validation is worth more than a dozen sales. He sees the soul you poured into the machine, the ghost of the perfect device that was compromised for mass production. Later that afternoon, a different kind of visitor arrives. A delegation of officials from the Ottoman Empire. in their magnificent fez-and embroidered coats, are touring the hall. They stop at your booth, their interpreter asking you to explain the device. You perform the demonstration. The hat lifts and lowers. The delegation murmurs amongst themselves in Turkish. You have no idea what they are thinking. Then, the lead official turns to the interpreter, who then turns to you. His Excellency, the interpreter says, is most impressed. He wishes to know if you could adapt this magnificent technology for the fez. You stand there, utterly stumped. The fez has no brim. How would you tip it? Do you lift the whole thing? Does the tassel wiggle? The mechanical and cultural logistics are mind-boggling. It's a problem so far outside your experience that you can only stare back, dumbfounded. The delegation, apparently taking your stunned silence for a negative, nods politely and moves on. You missed your chance to break into the lucrative Ottoman automated headwear market. The exhibition is a series of these strange, fleeting encounters. You don't get a big contract. You don't win a gold medal. But you do get something else. You get perspective. You've seen your invention reflected in the eyes of the world as a piece of fine craftsmanship to a Swiss watchmaker, and is a baffling cultural puzzle to an Ottoman official. The salute or IUM is more than just a silly idea. It's a mirror, showing you the different values and assumptions of the people who encounter it. And that, in its own way, feels like a kind of success. The International Exposition gives you a renewed sense of legitimacy, but it fails to translate into a significant boost in sales. The salute or IUM remains a niche curiosity, a product more talked about than purchased. Then, one Wednesday morning, the world decides to talk about it a lot more. Briggs, the factory foreman, is the first to bring you the news. He doesn't say a word, just walks into your office and places a magazine on your desk. It's a copy of Punch. Your heart sinks. Punch, or the London Charivari, is the most famous satirical magazine in the British Empire. It's witty, sophisticated, and merciless. To be featured in Punch is to have truly arrived in the public consciousness that it's almost never a flattering arrival. The magazine's brilliant cartoonists and writers are masters of puncturing pomposity and lampooning the follies of the age, and you have a sinking feeling that your invention is exactly the kind of folly they would adore. You open the magazine with a sense of dread, and there it is, a full -page cartoon. The illustration is by one of the magazine's most famous artists, a man whose sharp, elegant lines are instantly recognizable. The title of the cartoon is The March of Progress, or The Gentleman of the Future. It depicts a scene in a London park. In the foreground is a gentleman, so laden with automated gadgets that he is barely recognizable as human. On his head is a ridiculously oversized top hat, from which your salute, or IUM, is visibly and clumsily protruding, tipping itself at a passing lady. But that's just the beginning. His waistcoat is a mess of dials and buttons, clearly a nod to your competitor, the Coventry Steam -powered courtesy assistant. One of his boots is caught in the act of lacing itself, a jab at your neighbor from the exposition. A mechanical arm extends from his back to offer a calling card, while a small tube near his collar emits a puff of smoke labeled Eau de Cologne. He is a walking monument to unnecessary invention. The lady he is tipping his hat to is looking at him not with admiration, but with a kind of horrified pity. Her own hat, a small, fashionable thing, has a tiny propeller on top, a satirical swipe at the ventilating hat you saw in the patent office. The caption below the cartoon reads, "What with automatics Aluto RS, self-dying cravats, and steam-powered walking sticks. The modern gentleman will soon have no need for limbs or a mind of his own whatsoever." It's a brutal, comprehensive, and devastatingly funny takedown of your entire industry. You are not just a target. You are the centerpiece of the joke. Your salute, or IUM, with its clunky, visible mechanism, is presented as the gateway to this dystopian future of outsourced humanity. The cartoonist has perfectly captured the public's underlying anxiety about technology, the same fears that Dr. Finch articulated with his pseudo-minus scientific jargon. But where Finch was serious and clinical, Punch is sharp, witty, and reaches 100 times more people. Abernathy, when he says it, is surprisingly calm. You expect him to fly into a rage, but instead, he studies the cartoon with a strained, thoughtful expression. Well, he says, with a wry smile you've never seen before, we're famous. He understands something that you, in your wounded pride, do not. In the world of Victorian media, there is no such thing as bad publicity. Being mocked in Punch is, in a bizarre way, a mark of relevance. It means you are part of the national conversation. People who had never heard of the salute or IUM will now know what it is. The name might be associated with a joke, but it will be known. The historical role of satire magazines like Punch is a subject of much academic study. Were they a genuine force for social change, shaping public opinion and holding the powerful to account? Or were they simply a form of sophisticated entertainment, a way for the educated classes to feel clever and superior to the follies they read about? The answer is likely a bit of both. For you, the magazine has acted as a powerful cultural lens, focusing all the vague doubts and absurdities surrounding your invention into one single, unforgettable image. The fallout from the cartoon is immediate. For the next few weeks, you can't go anywhere without seeing people chuckling over it. The phrase doing a salute or IUM briefly enters the London slang as a term for a clumsy or overly elaborate attempt to be polite. Your rivals are mocked just as much as you are. Theodore Sledge's steam-powered courtesy assistant becomes the butt of jokes about men whose heads might explode from a combination of high pressure and high society. Some of your more timid clients return their devices, not wanting to be associated with the cartoon. But, to your astonishment, a new type of customer emerges: the ironic buyer. Young university students, cynical bohemians, and people who fancy themselves as would start buying the salute or IUM because it was in Punch. They wear it as a joke, a piece of performance art. They host automated gentleman parties where they try to outdo each other with useless gadgets. Your invention has undergone another bizarre transformation. It has gone from a serious, if misguided, to law of etiquette, to a medical curiosity, to a carnival prop, and now to a symbol of satirical protest against modernity itself. You are selling your product to people who are buying it specifically to mock the original reason you invented it. The money all spends the same, as Abernathy's fond of saying, but you can't help but feel a profound sense of dislocation. You look at the cartoon again. The artist has drawn your face, or at least a caricature of it, onto the beleaguered gentleman of the future. He has your anxious eyes, your slightly bewildered expression. The joke is not just on your invention. The joke is on you. You are the man who tried to fix a problem that didn't need fixing and, in the process, created a whole new world of absurdity. And now, the most famous magazine in London has made sure everyone knows it. The Punch cartoon makes you infamous. The salute or IUM becomes a running joke in the city, but it also stays in the public eye. Sales are erratic, a mix of serious customers and ironic pranksters. The company is surviving, but not thriving. And then, the letter arrives. It's not a joke or a fan letter. It's from a firm of solicitors, Messrs. Table Grime, and it's written in cold, unforgiving legal prose. It informs you that your company, Tyranny, is being sued for damages by one Lord Ashworth. The cause grievous bodily harm and public humiliation caused by a defective and dangerously malfunctioning salute or IUM device. Abernathy reads the letter, and his face, for the first time since you've known him, turns pale. Being mocked in Punch is one thing. Being sued by a member of the aristocracy is quite another. This could ruin them. You are summoned to a meeting with your own solicitor, a dry, dusty man named Mr. Finchley, who seems perpetually disappointed in humanity. In his office, surrounded by stacks of legal texts bound in decaying leather. The story of the incident is laid out. Lord Ashworth is an elderly, notoriously grumpy peer of the realm. He had purchased one of the deluxe, brass-cased salute or IUMs, likely on the advice of his doctor to alleviate his gout-related stiffness. According to the plaintiff's letter, he was attending a garden party. He approached a group that included a duchess, a person of immense social standing. He activated his salute, or IUM, to perform the requisite gesture of supreme respect. This is where the accounts diverge. According to Lord Ashworth's solicitors, the device suffered a catastrophic mechanical failure. Instead of lifting the hat, the lifting plate allegedly shot out sideways at great velocity, striking the Duchess squarely on the temple. The letter claims she was not seriously injured, but was deeply startled and suffered an affront to her dignity, dropping her teacup and causing a scene. Lord Ashworth, horrified, tried to remove the hat, but the malfunctioning device was somehow jammed, leading to a frantic and undignified struggle that ruined the party and made him a laughingstock. A sideways motion. You protest to your solicitor. That's impossible. The lifting plate is on a hinge. It can only move up and down. They're lying. Mr. Finchley sighs the sigh of a man who has heard this exact brand of client indignation 1,000 times. In a court of law, my dear boy, possibility is often less important than perception. And the perception is that your machine assaulted a duchess. It's a legal nightmare. The Victorian legal system was a strange and wonderful beast. It was a time of great legal reform, but also one where tradition, class prejudice, and theatricality played a huge role in the courtroom. A case like this, a machine, a lord, a duchess would be a public spectacle. The press would have a field day. Abernathy, ever the pragmatist, wants to settle immediately. Pay the old fool often to make it go away. He grunts. That Lord Ashworth, a man of immense pride and, apparently, a deep seated hatred for newfangled technology, refuses to settle. He wants his day in court. He wants to publicly crucify the makers of this infernal machine. This forces you to prepare for a trial. You and Mr. Finchley spend days going over the schematics of the salute or IUM. You have to explain the inner workings of your invention in minute detail, trying to prove that the incident as described simply could not have happened. You suspect the truth is far more mundane. Lord Ashworth probably dropped the heavy device while trying to fit it, and in his embarrassment, concocted a dramatic story of a mechanical attack. But proving that is another matter entirely. The case shines a light on the nascent field of product liability. In an age of mass-produced goods, who is responsible when a product fails? Is it the inventor? The manufacturer? The user? The legal framework for these questions was still being built, often through bizarre and high-profile cases like this one. Historians who study the legal history of the era are fascinated by these moments, where the law has to frantically catch up with the pace of technological change. A week before the scheduled court date, you get a lucky break. A young clerk from the solicitor's office, tasked with interviewing other guests from the garden party, finds a witness, the Miss Eleanor Vance, a quiet, observant young woman who was at the party, has a different recollection of the events. You and Mr. Finchley meet with her. She is nervous but clear-headed. Lord Ashworth was showing the device off to everyone. She explains. He was very proud of it. He called it his mechanical servant, but he seemed to be having some trouble with the winding key. I saw him forcing it, and I heard a distinct snap sound just before he approached the Duchess. This is your defense. He broke it through messieurs. The snapping sound was likely the mainspring being overwhelmed and breaking, exactly like the incident at the Hyde Park debut. The sideways motion was probably just the broken mechanism collapsing inside the hat as he moved his head. Mr. Finchley's eyes light up with a flicker of professional excitement. Yuzuera, a classic defense. But Miss Vance adds a crucial and troubling detail. The Duchess wasn't struck by the machine, she says softly. I was standing quite close. Lord Ashworth made his bow, and as he did, a small bird, which had been nesting in the tree above, chose that exact moment tools. Drop a souvenir. It landed on the Duchess's shoulder. That is what startled her. That is why she dropped her teacup. Lord Dashworth's hat was simply part of the general chaos that followed. The truth is a sublime comedy of errors. A broken spring, a clumsy lord, and a bird with unfortunate timing. The salute, or IUM, was not the weapon. It was merely an accessory to the crime. Armed with this new testimony, Mr. Finchley writes a blistering letter to Lord Ashworth's solicitors, laying out in excruciating detail the testimony of their new witness and gently suggesting that their client might not enjoy having the story of the bird dropping discussed in open court and reported in every newspaper in London. 2 days later, the lawsuit is quietly dropped. You have won. You have been vindicated. But the victory is a hollow one. The ordeal has cost a fortune in legal fees and has dragged your company's name through the mud. It highlights the immense vulnerability of an inventor. You aren't just responsible for your machine working correctly, but also for defending it against every possible misuse, accident, or outright lie that a user might dream up. The experience leaves you feeling weary and disillusioned. The beautiful, simple dream of invention has been replaced by the ugly, complicated reality of litigation. The lawsuit is behind you, but it has left a scar. The salute, or IUM, is now notorious. A product famous for being satirized in Punchline for allegedly assaulting a duchess with the help of a pigeon. Abernathy is tired of the headaches. The factory corner dedicated to your invention grows quieter. The stream of orders, which was never more than a trickle, slows to an occasional drip. You are forced to confront a reality that is far more powerful and inexorable than a grumpy lord or a satirical cartoonist, the changing tide of fashion. You begin to notice it subtly at first. You're walking down Regent Street. Then you see a group of young, fashionable men. They are not wearing the stiff, formal top hats or bowlers that your device is designed for. They are wearing softer felt hats, like the Homburg, made popular by the Prince of Wales. Or, even more alarmingly, they are wearing tweed flat caps, previously the headwear of the rural working class, now adopted as a rakish, informal style. Then, you see something truly shocking. A young man, an artist type, walking with a lady in broad daylight, with no head at all. His hair is artfully disheveled, and he seems completely unashamed. A few years ago, this would have been a scandal, a sign of utter disrespectability. Now, it just looks modern. The woman he is with doesn't seem to mind in the slightest. The tyranny of the hat, the very problem you set out to solve, is beginning to crumble on its own. You retreat to the libraries, poring over fashion magazines on society columns. The trend is undeniable. While formal headwear is still required for official functions and in the most conservative business and political circles, for everyday wear, a new informality is taking root. The rigid, unspoken rules that governed every social interaction are starting to relax. The complex grammar of hat gestures is being replaced by a simpler vocabulary, a polite nod, a friendly smile. This is a profound cultural shift. Historians and sociologists still debate the exact causes. Some point to the rise of sports and leisure activities. A man can't easily play a game of tennis or ride one of those new fangled bicycles while wearing a towering silk top hat. Others argue it's tied to the changing class structure. As the middle class grew in confidence and influence, they began to reject the stiff, aristocratic fashions of the old guard in favor of more practical and comfortable styles. Still others suggest it has to do with improvements in public transport, like the enclosed carriages of the Underground Railway, where wearing a large hat is simply an inconvenience. Whatever the reason, the implications for your business are catastrophic. You have invented the perfect, automated solution to a problem that is rapidly ceasing to exist. You've created the world's most advanced buggy whip just as the first automobiles are starting to appear on the streets. Abernathy sees it too. He is a man of textiles. He understands the currents of fashion better than anyone. One afternoon, he calls you into his office. He doesn't look angry, just resigned. "It's over, son," he says, gesturing to a fashion plate on his desk showing a man in a soft, casual cap. The world is moving on. Stiff hats and stiff manners are going the way of the dodo. We're holding on to a relic. You try to argue. You talk about new markets, new models. What about a device for the Heidelberg? A gentler, softer tip, you suggest, sounding desperate even to your own ears. "It's not the head, it's the attitude," he says, shaking his head. "The world is getting faster. People don't have time for all this ceremony anymore. They want convenience, comfort, your machine. It's a beautiful, clever solution to yesterday's problem." He informs you that he is shutting down the Salute, or IUM production line. The factory space will be refitted for a new line of ready-made flannel trousers, a product he is certain has a bright and profitable future. He offers you a severance package, a respectable sum that is more than generous. He also gives you something else, the patent. He signs the rights back over to you, along with a dozen or so remaining exhibition-grade models. "They're your babies, after all," he says, with a rare flash of sentimentality. "Maybe you can find a home for them." It's a strange, quiet end to your grand industrial enterprise. There is no bankruptcy, no dramatic collapse, just a pragmatic business decision. The great, thumping steam engine of progress has simply rolled on, leaving you and your invention behind on the platform. You go back to the now silent corner of the factory. The workers have already been reassigned. The specialized tools and presses are being dismantled. The shelves where hundreds of Salute, or IUMs once sat, are empty. You pack the last few dozen unsold units into a crate. They are the final remnants of your dream. The tin ones are mostly melted down for scrap. Their brief, noisy lives over. But you carefully wrap the beautiful brass and mahogany models from the exhibition. They are too perfect to be destroyed. You are an inventor without a product, a captain without a ship. The world has not been revolutionized. Gentlemen's arms presumably still ache. But they are solving the problem not with technology, but by simply refusing to play the game anymore. The irony is crushing. The social liberation you wanted to provide with a machine has been achieved by a simple change in collective attitude. You stand in the empty workshop, the dust motes dancing in the single shaft of light from a grimy window, the constant thump of the mill's steam engine, which was once the soundtrack to your ambition, now sounds like a funeral drum, marking the slow, quiet death of the patent tether spring Salute or IUM. The end of a company is not a single event, but a slow, quiet unraveling. After Abernathy's pragmatic decision, your days are spent overseeing the melancholy logistics of dissolution. You are the chief mourner at the funeral of your own dream. The factory space is the first to go. Briggs and his men, with an efficiency that feels almost brutal, dismantle the specialized presses and jigs you had so carefully designed. The tools are sold for scrap metal. The leftover tin casings are melted down. Their brief existence as a component of the Salute or IUM erased in the heat of the furnace. Within a week, the corner of the mill that was your entire world is just an empty, stained patch of floor, ready to be repurposed for the production of sensible flannel trousers. It's as if you weren't ever there. Then there are the accounts. You and a clerk from Abernathy's office spend days poring over ledgers, settling bills with suppliers of brass rods and coil springs, and calculating the final severance pay for the few workers who were dedicated solely to your project. The numbers tell a bleak story. The company, over its short lifespan, never truly turned a profit. The initial investment was eroded by production costs, the disastrous public debut, the expensive exposition booth, and the ruinous legal fees from the Lord Ashworth affair. The only period that showed a net positive income was the brief, glorious time when you were the official hat-mechanic to the provincial primate entertainment industry. It's a detail you ask the clerk to omit from the final report. The process is an education in failure. In the grand stories of Victorian enterprise, you only hear about the soaring successes, the Cadburys, the Stephensons, that for every one of them, they're worth thousands of small, hopeful companies like yours that flickered into existence and then quietly died out. Historians call this the churn of capitalism, a constant process of creation and destruction. But when it's your company being churned, it feels less like an economic theory and more like a personal tragedy. You are a statistic in a history book you haven't read yet. You have to deal with the existing customers. A handful of recall notices are sent out, offering a small refund for the return of the device, citing discontinuation of the product line. Most are ignored. A few salute or items are returned, their owners clearly tired of the joke. One is sent back by the widow of the elderly gentleman from Bath. In a short, polite note, she explains that her husband had passed away, but that the device had brought him a measure of comfort in his final months. Your invention, a source of farce and litigation for so many, was a genuine help to at least one person. The thought is a small, solitary candle in the gloom. Then there's Mr. G. Rock. You write to him, informing him that you can no longer supply parts or new units for Spanky the polite ape and his growing dynasty. He writes back a surprisingly philosophical letter. The public's fancy is a fickle beast. My boy, he writes, Spanky's star is already beginning to wane. The crowds now clamor for a pig that can allegedly solve arithmetic problems. We had a good run. Fear not. Your magnificent machines will be given a place of honor in my personal collection of retired wonders. It's comforting to know that your inventions will spend their retirement alongside the props of a numerate pig. The final act is clearing out your small office. It's a space filled with ghosts. You roll up the schematics for Prototype 2, the beautiful dream, and the desperate sketches for the clone minus dispensing mark II, the dream turned nightmare. You pack away the copy of Punch with the damning cartoon, and the file of legal documents from the Ashworth case. These are the artifacts of your journey, the relics of your glorious failure. You are left with the dozen perfect. Exhibition minus great salute or ium is that Abernathy let you keep. They sit in their padded crate, a silent testament to what could have been. They are too beautiful to throw away, too specialized to sell. They are your legacy, a collection of exquisitely crafted solutions to a problem that no longer exists. The whole experience forces a question that many inventors and entrepreneurs face. What is the difference between perseverance and delusion? You held on to your vision through public mockery, technical failures, and financial hardship. Was that noble? Or were you just a fool who couldn't see the writing on the wall? There's a fine line, and you suspect you danced on both sides of it. This is a question historians often grapple with when assessing figures from the past. Is an individual's visionary status simply a matter of their idea happening to align with the unpredictable currents of history? Had fashion not changed, would you be hailed today as a pioneer of social automation? It's impossible to know. On your last day, Abernathy calls you to his office one final time. He hands you your severance check. No hard feelings. Son, he says, his gruff demeanor softening for a moment. It was a damned good try. The world just wasn't ready for it. Or perhaps it was too ready to move past it. You walk out of the factory gates for the last time. The rhythmic thump minus thump of the steam engine feels distant now, part of a world that is no longer yours. You have a pocket full of money, a crate full of uselessly beautiful machines, and a head full of hard minus earned lessons. You are unemployed. Your company is dead. Your great invention is obsolete. The great Victorian age of invention roars on around you, but your part in it, for now, is over. The severance from Abernathy gives you a cushion, a rare chance to float in the busy river of London life without the desperate need to swim. The frantic energy that has propelled you for the past few years, the obsession, the anxiety, the constant problem-solving drains away, leaving a hollow, quiet space in its wake. For the first time in a long time, you have nothing to invent. You move into a new, smaller set of rooms, and the crate containing the 12 exhibition-grade salute, or IU sits in the corner like a coffin. Some days you avoid looking at it. On others, you open the lid and run a finger over the polished brass, a painful reminder of your failed ambition. To fill the silence in your head, you start to walk. You walk for hours, exploring parts of the city you never had time to see. You watch the construction of the Newtown Bridge, a marvel of steam-powered hydraulics and Gothic steel, and you feel a pang of envy for the engineers who are building something so grand, so permanent, so undeniably useful. Your hat-dipper seems like a pathetic toy in comparison. You spend afternoons in the British Museum, wandering through halls filled with the wreckage of entire civilizations. You see Roman gadgets, Assyrian clockwork, Egyptian water clocks. You realize that the dream of automation, of making life easier through clever machines, is not a Victorian invention. It's an ancient human impulse. You are part of the very, very long line of hopeful, and often failed, inventors. The thought is strangely comforting. It contextualizes your failure, making it feel less personal and more a part of the human condition. One day, on a whim, you visit the patent office again, not to file an application, but to browse the archives, a ghost haunting the scene of your former hopes. You look up your own patent, number 4712, an apparatus for the automatic lifting unlowering of headwear. It's there, officially enshrined in the records of human ingenuity. It's a small form of immortality. No matter what happened to the company, your idea is preserved here forever. You also look up your rivals. You find a patent for Theodore Sledge's steam-powered courtesy assistant. The design is even more terrifying than you imagined. A complex web of miniature pipes and valves. An appendix to the file notes that the patent was abandoned after just 1 year. You can only imagine what kind of disastrous test run lead to that decision. You find no patent at all for the Parisian pneumatic solar, confirming your suspicion that it was nothing more than a marketing fiction, a ghost designed to haunt you. You won the arms race by default, simply by being the only one who actually built the damn thing. This research into failed inventions becomes a new, gentle obsession. You learn about the acoustic telegraph, a pre-mined telephone device that was supposed to transmit musical notes over wires, which never worked. You read about the atmospheric railway, a grand project by the famous engineer Isambard Kingdom Brunel, which used stair pressure to pull trains through a pipe and failed spectacularly due to technical issues, specifically rats eating the leather seals. The fact that even a giant of engineering like Brunel could have a colossal public failure makes your own little fiasco seem much more forgivable. This study of great failures is a niche but fascinating area of the history of technology. Historians argue that we can often learn more from the failures than the successes. Failures reveal the true boundaries of a period's technical knowledge, its economic realities, and its cultural assumptions. Your salute or IUM is a perfect case study. It failed not because it was technically impossible, but because the cultural assumption it was based on the permanence of formal hat etiquette was wrong. Slowly, an old, familiar itch begins to return. It's the inventor's itch, the part of your brain that sees a problem and immediately starts designing a solution begins to stir from its slumber. It starts with small things. You get annoyed with your constantly dripping tap, and you spend a week designing a new type of washer using a revolutionary rubber compound. It works perfectly. You get tired of the window rattling in its frame on windy nights, so you devise a clever system of felt-padded wedges to silence it. You are not thinking about commercial applications. You are not thinking about patents or investors. You are inventing for the pure joy of it, for the simple satisfaction of solving a small, tangible problem. You are returning to the pure, Uncork its spirit that first sent you to your drafting table. One evening, you are struggling to read a book in the fading light. The gas lamp in your room casts a harsh, uneven glare. You wish you could have a steady, focused beam of light right where you need it. You look at one of the salute or ayumas in its crate. You see the articulated brass arm, the smooth, controlled motion. An idea begins to form, a completely new and completely different idea. You take one of the beautiful exhibition minus grade models and bring it to your workbench. You carefully dismantle the hat minus lifting mechanism. You keep the elegant, jointed brass arm and the weighted base that keeps it stable. You remove the clockwork motor and replace it with a simple, adjustable friction hinge. Then, you mount a small housing for a gas nozzle and a polished reflector where the hat minus lifter used to be. You connect it to the gas supply, strike a match, and a steady, bright flame springs to life. You can move the arm, position it exactly where you want the light to fall. It holds its position perfectly. It's an adjustable, articulated reading lamp. It's elegant, it's useful. It's 100 times more practical than the salute or IUM ever was. You have taken the wreckage of your greatest failure and transformed it into the prototype of a modest, but genuine, success. You look at the lamp, its warm glow pushing back the shadows in your room. A smile spreads across your face. You are not done yet. You are an inventor, and you have a new ideal. The next chapter of your life is just beginning. Decades pass. The gaslight of your London gives way to the steady, clean glow of the electric bulb. The clatter of horseshoes is replaced by the rumble and hunk of motor cars. The Victorian era, with its stifling certainties and glorious, absurd ambitions, fades into memory, becoming history, and your inventions, both the failures and the modest successes, begin their own slow journey through time. Let's follow the fate of one specific salute or IUM, not one of the beautiful exhibition models you transformed into lamps, but one of the standard, tin-minus cased production units. Let's say it was unit number 247. Unit 247 was purchased in 1889 by a Mr. Arthur P. Umble, a junior accountant with a terrible case of social anxiety. For him, the 1 guinea price was a massive expense, but he saw it as an investment in his own peace of mind. He used it for 3 years. The loud CLOM came -CI's easy -DHWUMP of the mechanism was a comfort to him. The sound of social obligation being correctly dispatched. He was one of your few genuinely satisfied customers. But, as the 1890 seconds wore on, Mr. P.U. MBLE noticed, just as you did, that the world was changing. His colleagues started wearing softer hats. His boss declared that hats were no longer required inside the office. The salute or IUM, still strapped faithfully inside his bowler, was activated less and less. Eventually, he stopped wearing the bowler altogether, opting for a fashionable flat cap. The salute or IUM was retired. Mr. PUMBLE, having gained a little confidence with age, found he could now manage a polite nod all by himself. Unit 247 was placed in a small wooden box, along with his grandfather's pocket watch and a lock of his mother's hair, and stored in the attic. There it sat, in the dark, for nearly 50 years. It survived 2 kings, a world war, and the invention of the radio. Mr. PUMBLE grew old and passed away. His children, clearing out the house in the late 1940s, found the box. They looked at the strange, tin-minus and minus iron contraption with bewilderment. They had no idea what it was. A piece of a clock? A strange kind of fishing reel? Believing it to be a piece of worthless junk, they put it in a box of household clutter destined for a charity shop. The charity shop, run by 2 elderly ladies, was just as baffled. They put it in a brick minus brack bin with a price tag of 6pence. There it's at for another few months, nestled amongst chipped teacups, lonely salt shakers, and tarnished silverware. This is the typical life cycle of an obsolete object. It goes from being a cutting minus-edge piece of technology to a sentimental keepsake too. Finally, anonymous junk. Most inventions end their lives here, in the purgatory of the junk shop or the scrap heap. The stories and ambitions of their creators are lost, scrubbed away by the passage of time. But Unit 247 gets a lucky break. One rainy afternoon, a man named Mr. Alistair Finch Jr. enters the shop. He is the son of the very same Drive Finch who had studied your device decades ago. Alistair is not a doctor. He is an amateur historian and a collector of what he calls bygone technologies. He has a particular fondness for the strange, unsuccessful gadgets of the late Victorian era. He inherited his father's passion for peculiar inventions, but none of his pseudo-minus scientific moralizing. He rummages through the brick minus brack bin, and his eyes fall on the familiar shape of your device. He knows exactly what it is. His father had one on his desk for years, a relic from his study. He buys it for sixpence, feeling as though HES just committed a robbery. Back in his study, a room filled with early typewriters, failed fountain pens, and bizarre kitchen gadgets, Alistair cleans the grime off Unit 247. He is a patient, tearful man. He manages to gently pry open the tin casing. The clockwork mechanism inside is rusted and frozen. The mainspring is snapped. Mr. Pumbl. He must have overwounded on its very last use. Alistair spends a week meticulously restoring it. He carefully removes the rust, oils the gears, and, using his watchmaker skills, fashions a new mainspring. This act of restoration is a fascinating one. It's a form of historical conversation. As he handles the components, he is trying to understand the mind of its creator. Why was this gear shaped this way? Why was this lever placed here? It's a way of communing with you, the inventor, across the chasm of time. Historians and museum curators who perform this kind of work often talk about the object's voice. They believe that a physical artifact, if studied closely enough, can tell you its own story, the story of its making, its use, its abandonment. Alistair is listening to the voice of Unit 247. Finally, the moment comes. He wins the new spring with a small key. He presses the trigger. CLONK-CISDZ-THWUMP. The sound echoes in the quiet study. It's a sound from another world, a mechanical ghost brought back to life. The lifting arm rises and falls, as perfectly as the day it was made in Abernathy's factory. Alistair is thrilled. He has rescued a small piece of history from oblivion. He writes an article about his find for a small historical society journal. He describes the device, recounts his father's theories about it, and speculates on the anonymous inventor who dreamed it up. The article is read by a handful of other eccentric collectors. Unit 247's journey is not over. It sits on Alistair's shelf for another 20 years. When he passes away, his collection of bygone technologies is bequeathed to a local museum. Not a grand national institution, but a small, underfunded regional museum of industry. And so, Unit 247, the humble product of your ambitious dream, finally finds its final resting place. It is placed in a dusty glass cabinet in a dimly lit gallery, next to a collection of Victorian biscuit tins and a display of early sewing machines. Its long, strange journey from a London factory to an accountant's attic, to a charity shop bin, to a collector's study, has come to an end. It is now officially a museum piece, an artifact, a piece of history. Let's leave Unit 247 resting in its dusty provincial museum for a moment and jump forward again. This time to the present day. The small museum of industry has, against all odds, survived. It's still underfunded, still a little shabby, but it's there, and a new curator has just been hired. Her name is Drive Thorne, a young, energetic historian with a PhD in the material culture of the late Victorian period. She has a particular interest in what she calls technological follies. Dr. Thorne believes that you can learn just as much about an era from the things it got wrong as from the things it got right, while her older colleagues are obsessed with the steam engines and power looms. She is drawn to the museum's forgotten corners, to the weird and wonderful objects that don't fit into the grand narrative of progress. One afternoon, while doing a full inventory of the museum's collection, she ventures into the dimly lit gallery where your invention resides. She sees the cabinet filled with biscuit tins and sewing machines, and in the back, she spots at Unit 247, the old label next to it, typed on a yellowing index card, simply reads Clockwork Device, late 19th C, purpose unknown. Her heart beats a little faster. She knows what this is. She's seen drawings of it in old copies of Punchline. Read Alastair Finch Jr. S. obscure article about it. This is a salute, or IUM, the real, physical example of the legendary automatic hat minus dipper. It's like an archaeologist finding a rare and mythical creature. She carefully removes it from the display. The museum's records are sparse, only tracing its ownership back to the Finch collection. The original owner, the company, the inventor, all are listed as unknown. For Dr. Thorne, this isn't an obstacle. It's a challenge. It's a historical mystery waiting to be solved. Our research begins. This is how history is written, not in a single flash of insight, but through a painstaking process of connecting disparate, forgotten dots. She starts with the object itself. On the tin casing, faded but still legible, is a